Chapter 1348. Once the pseudo-world weapon was used, the mountains would crumble and the earth would crack. Moreover, this was only a territorial battle. Once it started, the aftermath would be enough to destroy all the territories on this side. Yi Qinghan was strong. With the Insur's pot in hand, he was not at a disadvantage in a short period of time. They were two small realms apart. However, Yi Qinghan's strength lay in his soul. He had comprehended the power of the world. This was something the Divine Master could not catch up to. The Divine Master's face turned green. He did not expect Yi Qinghan's soul to be so strong. He had even taken the Insur's pot from the Bian family. He could not do anything now. Once it started, Shui-9 Emperor would not help him. Then, Shui-9 Emperor would have an excuse to attack the divine sect. Shui-9 Emperor, say something. Do you want to investigate this person's background? The Divine Master shouted angrily. He was furious and used all his strength to send Yi Qinghan flying. He glared at Shui-9 Emperor and scolded angrily. I can investigate. What if Zhuo Feng is innocent? What if you killed my fifth brother? Shui-9 Emperor asked in a deep voice. If he and his cronies are innocent, I will apologize and use my death to comfort Marshal Shui. Marshal Shui has been used by others. I did not want to see the royal family fall into the hands of others. That is why I had to do this. Justice is in everyone's heart. I have a clear conscience. For the sake of the royal family, I am willing to bear all the crimes. The Divine Master said righteously. Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. He squinted at Shui-9 Emperor's cold eyes. He knew that this person could not be left alive. He had to kill him as soon as possible. All right. Since you want to investigate, I will allow you to do so after this auction. Justice is in everyone's heart. I want to protect the royal family. Marshal Shui's spirit will understand. Yi Qinghan replied fearlessly. Shui-9 Emperor was suspicious. He wanted to investigate Yi Qinghan. However, he did not know that Yi Qinghan had something on him. Zhuo Feng and Shui-9 Emperor's spirit were survivors of the Great Wilderness. There was no need to investigate. This was enough to kill Shui-9 Emperor. Since you're not afraid of being investigated, where did the elites of your left marshal's mansion come from? I have mobilized the most powerful intelligence network, but I still can't find out where they came from. They can't just appear out of thin air, can they? The God Lord asked coldly. Shui Zhihuang also stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. He had seen the people from the left marshal's residence before. Every one of them was as strong as a top genius. It was impossible for it to appear for no reason. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a cold smile as he hoarsely said, the left marshal's residence can only mobilize those few trusted aides. If you want to investigate, I'll tell you one by one. Zhu Wuxin is a subordinate of Marshal Shui and is known as the military saint. Anyone can investigate him. Tong Tong, I don't think anyone knows better than you who he is. He is a survivor of the Tong family that your divine sect annihilated and was saved by me. The rest of the people are mostly the same. I can make up 10,000 or even 1,000,000 false accusations. If you think there's something wrong with my background, then show me the evidence and I'll let you do whatever you want with me. If you can't, then don't use such an interrogative tone with me. As the master of divine sect, don't you think it's childish? The Divine Master was speechless, but he was sure that there was something wrong with Yi Qinghan's group. Time will prove everything. Ever since you appeared, the imperial family has been in constant disputes and the nation's strength has been weakened. We're not fools. The Divine Master coldly snorted. Yes, time will prove everything. You probably don't remember how many people you've assassinated and destroyed over the years, but some people do. Since you want to investigate, then don't even think about running away. Who doesn't have secrets that they don't want others to know? You, the 9th Emperor, and I all have some forbidden places that we don't want others to step into. Am I right, Snow God Master, Ninth Emperor? Yi Qinghan whispered with a sly smile. The Ninth Emperor's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Yi Qinghan's confident eyes. He was secretly shocked as he recalled the day when Yi Qinghan entered the Ninth Emperor's residence and asked to take the Snow Emperor's spirit as his adopted daughter. He suspected that Yi Qinghan had recognized her identity as a remnant of the wilderness. Damn it, I should have promised him that day. Once he started to train her, I would never expose her identity as an emperor's spirit. Otherwise, it would be a capital offense to train a remnant of the wilderness. The Ninth Emperor was secretly furious and did not know what to do. The Divine Master's expression changed as well. Over the years, he had assassinated many members of the imperial family and some ministers through hell. Others might not know, but the Lord of Hell must know. He might even have left some evidence. Once he fought with Yi Qinghan, no one would benefit. The three of them were silent. No one wanted to lose both sides, especially Yi Qinghan. Once the investigation started, no one could guarantee that the imperial family would not find out the origin of the insane sect. But at this moment, he appeared to be the most indifferent, as if he was not afraid of being found out. This meant that there was nothing wrong with him. I am still an assistant minister. Today, in the case of the ginseng fruit tree, the Bien family went crazy and slaughtered the giant gods to provide life energy for the ginseng fruit tree. They should be exterminated. If they refuse to submit, I will punish them severely. Ninth Emperor, do you have any objections? Yi Qinghan asked in a dignified manner. After a moment of silence, the Ninth Emperor said coldly, "No objections, kill. Listen to my orders, exterminate the Bien family. All the adults will be sent to the border river to protect the snow country and the divine world. Those who dare to resist or escape, kill them without mercy." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan soared into the sky with the Snow Border Army's chief commander seal in his hand, and shouted in a deep voice. Yes, Xia Luochun was already dead, so the army naturally had to listen to the Snow Border Army's chief commander's orders. Even if Xia Luochun was not dead, Yi Qinghan took out the chief commander's seal, and the army would not listen to his orders. Boom, boom, boom. The army rushed towards the Bien family and surrounded them from all directions. Even the Divine Masters had no right to interfere. The Divine Sect had no right to interfere in the matters of the imperial court. The army rushed into the Bien family, and those who resisted were all slaughtered. The majority of the people were captured without resistance. Regardless of gender, they were all restricted. A grand family was suppressed just like that. Bien Changlong roared and wanted to resist. However, he was sucked away by Yi Qinghan with the Inshur's pot. In a blink of an eye, he was refined into a pool of dirty water. Bien Ing was still alive because Yi Qinghan did not want him to die. Now, he was being stepped on, living a life worse than death. Zuofeng, you bastard! You will die a horrible death! Bien Ing roared and cursed. His face was distorted as he struggled to stand up. However, that foot was like a heavenly pillar pressing down on his body. Yi Qinghan sneered and said hoarsely, "Since you don't give me face, don't blame me for not giving you face. I am proving to you what I said before." This time, the warning was directed at the Divine Lord and Shuejihuang. The message was very clear. If you give me face, I will give you face. If you don't give me face, you will end up worse than the Bien family. The Divine Master clenched his fists and regretted offending this despicable person. This despicable person was vengeful and cunning. It was impossible to guard against him. Shuejihuang was expressionless. At this moment, he had to consider whether or not to investigate Yi Qinghan. If he could not find anything, then Yi Qinghan would definitely take revenge. Once the Snow Emperor's spirit was used as an excuse, even he, Shuejihuang, would be confiscated. Chapter 1349. After destroying the Bien family, Yi Qinghan left, not even giving Xue Nine Emperor any face. He had already shown his power. Now, it was up to Shui Nine Emperor to see if he knew how to behave. If he didn't, the first one to die would be him, not the Divine Master. Arriving at the herb garden, Yi Qinghan saw that the entire tree was filled with ripe ginseng fruit. However, he knew that these ginseng fruits were filled with evil. Who knew how many lives of giant gods and even supreme gods were involved in them? Since they're all ripe, we can't waste them. Let's take them all, Yi Qinghan said calmly. When the divine bird heard that, it rushed up the ginseng tree and took half of the fruit. The other half was snatched by Xian Yanxue. The divine bird was furious and roared at Xian Yanxue, "You despicable and shameless person! You ran away when you were in danger and almost got me caught. I will never trust you again." Xian Yanxue rolled his eyes. When it came to shamelessness, no one could compare to the divine bird. He couldn't help but say disdainfully, "I went to help you ask for reinforcements. If I was trapped, would you have come to save me? Of course not. Don't even think about it. I won't even ask for reinforcements. I'll just let you be killed." The divine bird retorted proudly. Everyone shrugged their shoulders. This pair of exceptional goods were indeed brothers. Their style of doing things was the same. They would rather die than let their friend die. They were extremely lowly. Yi Qinghan's heart was heavy. He wasn't sure if he could suppress Shui Nine Emperor, but he definitely couldn't suppress the Divine Master. Once they investigated, it would be difficult for the insane sect to explain their origins. "Let's go back first." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said hoarsely. Everyone could see that Yi Qinghan was in a bad mood, so they stopped fooling around. They took all the resources in the Bian family's herb garden and left. Back at the auction house's relay station, everyone began to cultivate crazily. In the face of great pressure, they all wanted to share some of the pressure with Yi Qinghan. Mo Li, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and other super experts were working hard. Tong Tong had the boundary bone and was improving at a rapid pace. With endless resources to support him, it was difficult for him not to improve. When Xuezhi Huang returned to the relay station, he felt even more depressed. He couldn't be sure if Yi Qinghan knew the true identity of the Snow Emperor's spirit. Standing on the rooftop and enjoying the cold wind, Xuezhi Huang was deep in thought. There were only two ways to protect himself and the residents of the Nine Emperors. The first option was to secretly assassinate Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan's strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Just based on the fact that he could fight against a divine master, it was almost impossible to assassinate him. If they tried to assassinate him, they would only infuriate him. Therefore, the first option was blocked. The second option was to kill the Snow Emperor's spirit and Shui Feng. Then, he would kill his most beloved desolate slave. Thinking of the second option, Xuezhi Huang's face turned ferocious. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his iron fists twisted the railing. "If I want to investigate Shui Feng, I have to keep myself clean so that I won't have to worry about the consequences. Otherwise, I'll be inviting trouble to myself. I can't afford to take the risk. Once I lose, with Shui Feng's temperament, he'll definitely wipe out the residents of the Nine Emperors." Xuezhi Huang sighed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Yi Qinghan knew the identity of the Snow Emperor's spirit. What should I do? Cooperate with Shui Feng and destroy the Divine Sect? The Divine Sect has been arrogant and domineering all these years. If I can destroy it, the Imperial family will be able to dominate. However, if I want to destroy Shui Feng, I have to kill the desolate slave and the two children. Xuezhi Huang's eyes were filled with reluctance, but in the end, his will became firmer. Dong, dong, dong. Xuezhi Huang's fingertips tapped on the railing, producing a unique rhythm. A black-clothed man quickly appeared behind him. He was expressionless, like an ordinary soldier, but he was very dignified and steady. "Emperor, what are your orders?" the black-clothed man asked respectfully. "Go and investigate the origins of the group from the left marshal's residence. including Zhuofeng's. After you find out, do not alert anyone. Come and report to me immediately. Shuai lowered his voice and said in a hoarse voice. Yes, Emperor. Can I use any method? The black-clothed man asked in a deep voice. Yes, you can. Including attacking them, forcing them to use their origin energy, and investigating their identities through their cultivation technique. I suspect that they are survivors of the Great Wilderness. Shuai nodded solemnly. Then, he reminded, that group of people is very strong. There are more than 20 supreme gods. Although they are only beginner gods, their battle prowess is definitely elite among those of the same level. Therefore, when you attack them, you have to take advantage of when they are alone. The black-clothed man bowed again and then disappeared from the relay station. Yi Qinghan withdrew his divine sense. Although he could not hear what Shuai and the black-clothed man were saying, he was becoming more and more vigilant towards Shuai. At this moment, Xiao Yu quietly appeared in Yi Qinghan's room. She had seen Shuai and the black-clothed man in the inn opposite, but she did not know what they were talking about. Xiao Yu, who was the person that Shuai met just now? Yi Qinghan slightly opened his eyes and asked in a low voice. He is Lin Xian, the deputy commander and chief advisor of Snow Nine Emperor. He is extremely intelligent and powerful, so he shouldn't lose to me. He has a group of extremely powerful death warriors, all of whom were selected from the elite troops of the Snow World Army. They are supreme gods, and there are about 300 of them. They formed a special elite squad called Hunting Eagle. They are invincible, and once killed the most difficult supreme expert of the Nanwei realm. This group of people has disappeared for many years, and now that Lin Xian has appeared, it means that this squad has also awakened. Xiaoya's expression was solemn. It seemed that she was also very vigilant against this hunting eagle. Yi Qinghan frowned. He did not expect Shuai to be in control of such an army. It seems that killing him would take some effort. Although a single supreme god was powerful, it was not to the point of despair. However, once a special elite team was formed, it would be terrifying. To be able to join the Snow Realm army meant that one's strength was outstanding. If one could become a member of the Snow Realm army, then one would be even stronger. The members of this hunting eagle were all Kiliarchs and even tribunals of the elite troop. They were the elites of the elite. Their individual combat strength would not be any weaker than the group of people from the insane sect. Shuai, you used the hunting eagle not to deal with the divine sect, but to deal with me. Have you thought it through? Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a ruthless arc. He walked up the stairs to the top floor step by step until he arrived at Shuai's room. Dong dong dong. Yi Qinghan raised his hand and knocked on Shuai's door. Ninth Emperor I Zhuofeng am here to pay my respects. Yi Qinghan straightened his body and said indifferently. Shuai's eyes flashed coldly in the room. He flicked his finger and broke the barrier. He said in a hoarse voice, "Come in." Yi Qinghan smiled as he pushed open the door and entered. He looked at the dignified Shuai and sat on the chair opposite him. He looked straight into Shuai's eyes and asked curiously, "Ninth Emperor, I would like to ask, what is the consequence of harboring the survivors of the Great Wilderness?" Shuai's eyes turned cold. His veins bulged as he stared at Yi Qinghan. Chapter 1350. Seeing Yi Qinghan's evil smile, Shuai's Dao heart, which was as steady as a rock, was disturbed. "General Zhuo, what do you mean?" Yi Qinghan crossed his legs and leaned on the chair. He said evilly, "I like to make friends. If someone gives me 30% respect, I'll return 70%. If someone gives me 10% respect, I'll treat him like a brother. If someone doesn't give me face, I like to stomp him to death. Don't you think that's right? Just say it." Shuai was not sure if Yi Qinghan knew the identity of the Snow Emperor's spirit, so he did not want to reveal anything. The Snow Emperor's spirit, this little girl is very intelligent. I like her very much. Of course, Shui Feng is not bad either. It's their honor to have a father like you. However, you don't seem to want to cultivate the Snow Emperor's spirit. Are you worried that her identity will be exposed and affect your position and the safety of your family? Yi Qinghan squinted at Shui Zhihuang and went straight to the point. He wanted Shui Zhihuang to give up. You found out. Shui Zhihuang roared. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and said lightly, I didn't get your permission to take the Snow Emperor's spirit out. I don't think you'll be angry, right? Shui Zhihuang stood up and looked at Yi Qinghan suspiciously. He suspected that Yi Qinghan was lying. With the defense of the 9 Emperors' mansion, no one could take the Snow Emperor's spirit away secretly. You don't believe me? It's okay. You can send someone to check if the Snow Emperor's spirit is in the 9 Emperors' mansion. Yi Qinghan said lightly. Shui Zhihuang's veins bulged as he looked at Yi Qinghan coldly. He was filled with killing intent. What do you want? Shui Zhihuang asked angrily. As for the Snow Queen's spirit, I won't harm a single strand of her hair. I won't tell anyone that you're harboring the lost races of the wilderness. I'll even help you keep this a secret, but you have to give me face first. Otherwise, I'll treat you like a brother. Yi Qinghan's eyes shone with a light that seemed to be able to control the world. People were in awe of him and did not dare to disobey him. Shui Zhihuang stared at Yi Qinghan as if he wanted to see through him. However, when the two looked at each other, Yi Qinghan's eyes maintained a faint confidence and absolute control. Your ultimate goal is to destroy the God sect? Shui 9 Emperor asked suspiciously. No, of course not. I originally didn't want to deal with Divine Sect, but they didn't give me any face and blocked my path, so I took care of them. Yi Qinghan said indifferently as if Divine Sect was a wall that could be crushed with a wave of his hand. Then what's your ultimate goal? Shui 9 Emperor questioned. Yi Qinghan laughed and said, If I say that I want to help the royal family unify the world and destroy those superpowers, you won't believe me. However, as a member of the Snow Country's divine world, I naturally hope that Divine Nation can unify the 9 worlds and become more powerful than the deserted world. With that, Yi Qinghan turned and left, leaving Shui 9 Emperor with a mysterious back view. A large group of experts appeared on the streets of the auction house. They were all unfamiliar, and their power systems and divine power waves were not from the Snow Country's divine world. Yi Qinghan stood on the 4th floor of the inn and watched the passers-by. He realized that people from the 7 worlds had all arrived. They were all the top existences. They were either princes with top-level supreme gods, or overlords or tycoons. They came in groups of 3 to 5 for pseudo-world weapons and materials. The auction house had a wide network and had branches in other worlds. They had the authority to invite experts from the outside world to participate in the auction, just like how other worlds could invite the Snow Country's divine world to participate in the auction. This group of people was very low-key. They came quietly, entered the inn, and waited for the auction to begin. 3 days later, the auction began. The experts all received a notice from the auction house, the Mu family. This was a small-scale auction, and there were only a few resources up for auction. The participants were either representatives of the 7 worlds or financial group. There were more than 30 forces participating in the auction, but there were only 7 items up for auction. The competition was bound to be crazy. Yi Qinghan and Shui 9 Emperor entered the auction house alone. Xiaoye was wearing a mask and a white veil. She looked like a fairy, but no one dared to go up and talk to her. The Master of Heaven, Wang Zhongjuan of the Wang family, had come. Yi Qinghan looked at a crippled old man walking over with a cold expression. His lips curled into an evil smile. The person in charge of the Yantian Pavilion, the ancient Lich King, had his legs cut off by Yi Qinghan. After so many years, most of the older generation had died from their injuries. Only this old man was still walking around, but not many people knew him. Shui-9 Emperor also did not know the ancient Lich King. He frowned and looked at him, but the latter glared at him coldly. This person is very powerful. He is actually a fake world lord. I have never heard of him before. Shui-9 Emperor secretly transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan. He found it hard to believe. Yi Qinghan smiled and replied, "He is the ancient Lich King. His original form is a lascivious snake. Back then, he knelt down and licked the Supreme World Lord. His cultivation soared. In the end, his tail was cut off by the Great Desolation's father on the battlefield of the Great Desolation world. In the end, he became a deserter. There is nothing to be afraid of." When Shui-9 Emperor heard this, he looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. He could not understand how a person he did not know could know so much and in such detail. "Are you the reincarnation of an immemorial almighty expert?" Shui-9 Emperor asked seriously. Yi Qinghan nodded without hesitation. It was considered that he admitted his previous life. At this moment, Shui-9 Emperor no longer looked high and mighty. Instead, he placed Yi Qinghan on a higher level than himself. He bowed slightly and asked, "May I know which senior is from the immemorial era?" Yi Qinghan said coldly, "There are some things that you will naturally find out when the time comes. Back then, there weren't many almighties who fought alongside the Supreme Realm Lord. Who do you think I am?" Shui-9 Emperor did not dare to say anything more. The people who entered the auction house were very quiet. They each chose a room and sat down. They did not even say a word. The huge room was brightly lit. Every room was filled with delicacies, rare divine fruits, and divine wine. Xiao Yu tasted the wine. Her big eyes looked around as she looked at each power. All of them were top-notch existences. Yi Qinghan looked at everyone through the window. However, other than the Lich King, he did not recognize anyone else. However, these people's cultivation was extremely terrifying. They were like ordinary old men with their auras hidden. However, when they burst out, it was enough to destroy a part of the world. The atmosphere was tense. The various powers did not interact with others. Moreover, the hostility between them was very strong. They could not even nod at each other. If it was any other occasion, they would have already started fighting. At this moment, an old man from the Mu family walked in. He looked at everyone with a smile and bowed. "Thank you for your support. I have already informed you about the treasures that will be auctioned. I will not introduce you one by one. Everyone knows the rules of the auction. The highest bidder wins. I hope you will not make things difficult for the Mu family." "Brother Mu, we know the rules. Let's start. It's better to end it early so as not to waste our time," an old man from the true martial domain said indifferently. Everyone nodded in agreement. These people were racing against time. They hoped to use the pseudo-world weapon to enter the danger zone and become a pseudo-world lord. They even wanted to surpass the pseudo-world lord and become a supreme world lord. Chapter 1351. When the auction started, the Lich King's wrinkled face revealed an impatient expression. He coldly said, "Let's start with the pseudo-world artifact. I'm only interested in that." Everyone was silent. That was right. The most important thing was the pseudo-world artifact. Once they got the pseudo-world artifact, who would care about the materials? Even if they got it, they might not be able to successfully forge it. The probability of success was only 30%. The Lich King was the strongest. He was worthy of being an immemorial expert. No one refuted his words, not even the Mu family. Since Senior has spoken, Junior has no choice but to obey. We'll start with the pseudo-world artifact. This is a naturally formed spear. It's 10 feet long and as thick as a child's wrist. It weighs millions of pounds. Its material is unknown, and it has never been seen before. The tip of the spear is naturally formed and filled with the power of the world. It's a top-quality divine weapon. The Mu family elder waved his hand, and 2 supreme gods appeared behind him. They carried a long iron box and appeared in front of everyone. Boom! Once the iron box landed on the ground caved in and cracks extended. The divine spear had not yet appeared, but it emitted a heavy and imposing aura that made people revere it. Everyone stared at the long iron box at the same time. The Lich King stood up slightly and stretched out his neck. His desire was self-evident. Yi Qinghan leaned back in his chair. His fingertips kept brushing across the iron wooden table. A 5-finger mark appeared on the table, emitting an ear-piercing sound. His eyes were focused as he stared at the iron box. The power of the world revolved around the box. Even the peerless material of the iron box could not hide the divine might of the pseudo-world artifact. Precious light flowed all around, triggering and suppressing all technique. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The auction house was extremely spacious, and the sound kept reverberating. More than 30 experts had complicated expressions on their faces. The Mu family elder's face was flushed red. To be able to auction such a divine weapon was definitely unprecedented. According to the requirements of the bidder, the starting bid is a large state's territory. What's left are resources such as snow step divine stones, rare treasures, divine weapon materials. My auction house will calculate the price of the treasures according to the grade of the treasures, and the highest bidder will get this divine spear. The Mu clan's elder stared at the overlords and reminded them in a deep voice, "Overlords of the various divine nations, once you obtain the treasures, you are not allowed to snatch back the territories and materials you paid. Otherwise, the auction house will never trade with your divine nations and will leave your divine nations forever. I hope that the other divine nations and overlords can also guarantee that they will attack together and destroy the auction house. Otherwise, who would be willing to auction such treasures in the future?" "That's right. This old man agrees with this suggestion." The Lich King nodded. Shuejihuang and the others nodded in agreement. Although those overlords weren't divine nations, they definitely controlled more than one state. Even the divine sect had 3 states as subsidiary territories. Yi Qinghan smiled as he looked at the crowd and memorized their auras. This group of people was going to be enemies, including Shuejihuang. The next time they met, they would definitely fight to the death. "Everyone, please state your base bids," the Mu clan's elder said in a deep voice. Different states were obviously different. Some were rich in resources, while others were barren and lacking in resources. Some states were very suitable for humans to live in and for clans to recuperate. However, some states were different. Ferocious beasts could wreak havoc, and there could be beast hordes at any time. They could even be engulfed by natural disasters. It was like a torn land. Only adventurers would go to such places. No one else would go there. Yi Qinghan looked at Shuejihuang and wrote down the name of a state in his heart. It was the Fu Dragon State. Its geographical location was very good. It was close to the god of Fortune City. To the east was the sea, to the south was the god of Fortune City, and to the west was the god of Fortune City. Whether it was in terms of resources or geographical location, it was very good. Moreover, there weren't many powerful forces there. It would be easy to clear it out and hand it over to the owner of the divine spear. Shuejihuang looked at the name of the state Yi Qinghan wrote down and didn't refute. The others were still discussing which state to use as the base bid. This base bid was very important. Otherwise, it wouldn't be used as the base bid. After half an incense stick's worth of time, everyone put down a piece of parchment and waited for a joint bid. Once the base bid was made, it couldn't be changed. The Mu clan's elder looked at the 30 forces with anticipation. He said in a deep voice, "Everyone, please state your base bids." Shua. Everyone put down the parchment. Yi Qinghan also put up the parchment and hung it on the board beside him. Suddenly, his brows twitched. He looked towards the roof, because he had just discovered a wave of god power there. There were quite a few experts hidden in the auction house, including 1 pseudo-world lords and 4 peak paramount god. This was the foundation of the auction house, and this was only one of its branches. For a single divine kingdom to have an auction house like this, it was easy to imagine how much stronger it was than any of the other organizations in the universe. Very soon, the Mu clan's elder wrote down the base bid of each force on a board. All the states were very famous for being rich. They were rich in resources and had excellent geographical locations. It was very suitable for them to be independent. The Food Dragon State's advantage wasn't too obvious. However, it was the only place close to the sea. Even if the family was in trouble, they could escape to the depths of the sea. Seems like all the forces want this divine spear very much. The Mu clan's elder was very familiar with the Seven Realms. He knew that all the states were of the highest quality. At this moment, he was very excited. Xiaoye moved her body restlessly. She glanced at Yi Qinghan from the corner of her eyes and realized that he didn't have any emotions. It was as if he didn't care about the divine spear. Don't move. Later, we'll work together. When I bid, you just have to bid a bit higher. Yi Qinghan's lips twitched. His soul rushed into Xiaoye's consciousness and sent a trace of divine sense into her body. No one could eavesdrop. Everyone was very excited. They sat up straight and waited for the bids to be called. Everyone, do you have any bids? The Mu clan's elder smiled. 3 million snow step divine stones, 13 mid-grade supreme god pills, and half a kilogram of god congealing serum. The total price is about 10 million snow step divine stones. The divine master was the first to bid. 10 million snow step divine stones. Even a divine nation wouldn't be able to take out that much. It would affect the Empire's foundation. 4 million snow step divine stones, 1 Empyrean god bamboo. It's a material of a supreme-grade pseudo-world artifact. It's priceless. 3 supreme-grade supreme god pills, and 1 immemorial dragon bone. The various overlords bid one after another. The price made everyone blush with shame. Any one of them could nurture a super force. At this moment, the Lich King looked down at everyone with disdain. He said hoarsely, "This divine spear is mine. Other than the base price of the Dragon Divine Continent, I'll add another 10 million snow step divine stones, 1 immemorial resentment dragon bone, 5 supreme grade supreme god pills, 1 extreme supreme god secret technique, and 30 supreme grade goddesses. All of them are outstanding beauties. Their ability to serve others will definitely make you drool. It's much better than cultivating." Ha ha ha, everyone blushed with shame. Other than these women, this price was absolutely terrifying. Yi Qinghan's lips twitched. He hadn't even called out a bid yet, and this Lich King had already called out such a terrifying price. With so many years of accumulation, it wasn't something that others could compare to. That cultivation technique was enough to make many flinch. Chapter 1352. The Lich King had existed since ancient times, and he had the Yutian Pavilion to amass wealth for him. His wealth was enough to rival a country, and he was not inferior to the number 1 financial group in the world. Moreover, he did not have a family, so he did not need to consume resources. After accumulating wealth for billions of years, even a god nation could not compare to him. The various divine kingdoms and superpowers frowned when they heard the Lich King's bid. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, glared at the Lich King and clenched his fist. The primordial resentment dragon was Yi Qinghan's life and death brother, yet its spine was taken by this bastard. This was a great humiliation. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slowly got up. His golden armor let out a crisp sound as he pushed open the door and looked at the iron box. He said coldly, "My starting price is Hidden Dragon State and a set of extreme god techniques for mortals to pseudo-sector lord level. As long as the owner of the god spear provides me with resources, I will refine 10 extreme god pills for you for free, 1 pseudo-sector lord extreme god pill." Whoosh! Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan in shock and disbelief. During the primordial age, pseudo-world lord god pills were extremely rare. Within the 9 worlds, only 3 people were able to refine them. The Great Desolation Warlord, the Snow Nation's divine world's medicine god Taoist, and the spiritual world's true 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 spiritual world. Now, billions of years later, the great desolate battle overlord was already dead. The medicine god Taoist was also killed by the great desolate battle overlord. The true spirit world overlord was severely injured and still hadn't come out of seclusion. Right now, if one wanted to become a pseudo-world overlord, it would all depend on one's own luck and talent. Thus, there weren't more than 10 pseudo-world overlords. Huang Peng was one, Lich King was another. The rest of the pseudo-world overlords were either in seclusion or seeking opportunities to become a world overlord. Pseudo-sector lords were even rarer than sector lords. From this, one could see how precious pseudo-sector lord-level god pills were. This wasn't something resources could compare to. Once he broke through to the pseudo-sector lord level, he would be a peak existence. Even sector lords would come out to congratulate him. This time, the Lich King knew that he had lost. He was furious and coldly stared at Yi Qinghan. The corners of his mouth rose, and his eagle-like eyes were incomparably sharp. "Brat, you don't know who I am, do you?" The Lich King's killing intent surged as he asked threateningly. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan as if they were watching a good show. The God Lord was even more excited. He hoped that the Lich King and Yi Qinghan would fight. When the time came, both sides would suffer, and the divine sect would be able to survive. Xiaoya also looked worriedly at Yi Qinghan, only to discover that the evil smile on Yi Qinghan's lips made her shudder. Yi Qinghan bent his body slightly and leaned against the railing. He grinned, revealing a row of white teeth. His eyes were deep as he looked at the Lich King and said in a hoarse voice, "You're just a little lewd snake without a tail. Do you really think you're an ancient Lich King? Do you know what kind of terrifying existence dares to call themselves demon kings?" Boom! The Lich King was enraged, as if someone had stepped on his sore spot. He attacked and was about to kill Yi Qinghan. Just at this moment, an unparalleled pressure came from the auction house, directly locking onto the Lich King. "Lich King, this is an auction house. Please abide by the rules. Otherwise, you will be excluded from the next auction." A deep voice came from upstairs. It was filled with will, causing the entire auction house to feel extremely oppressive, making it hard for people to breathe. A powerful soul, a tribute sovereign. His cultivation had already reached the Great Circle, and he was only half a step away from becoming a realm lord. Even a peak realm lord couldn't kill him, because his speed and soul weren't inferior to a realm lord's. Yi Qinghan had goosebumps. Only now did he realize how terrifying this faintly discernible existence was. This person was from the immemorial era, but he couldn't remember. Perhaps he was a rising star, or perhaps he was someone who had hidden back then. However, he didn't participate in the battle of the Great Wasteland Domain. The Lich King's mouth twitched as he roared malevolently, "A trash like you actually dares to insult this seat? Can't you see? He didn't insult you, he's just speaking the truth. Those who dare to call themselves Demon Kings are all at the Great Circle realm. Their soul and speed are already at the Realm Lord level, and they are one small realm higher than this old man. Even I don't dare to call myself human ancestor. What qualifications do you have to call yourself Demon King?" The pressure from upstairs grew heavier, directly restricting the Lich King on the spot, causing him to be unable to move. This was the difference. There was also a difference between a fake realm lord. Although this person hadn't reached the Great Circle of the Great Circle realm, he was already extremely close. If he participated in the battle of the Great Wasteland Domain, he would be equal to one of the 8 realm lords, Yi Qinghan. The Lich King's face turned ashen. Among the fake realm lords, regardless of whether they were at the Great Circle realm or an ordinary realm lord like him, there were only 10 of them. The demon race was even fewer, only 1/3 of them. Even if he was refuted, it would be by the demon race expert. It wasn't up to the humans to make irresponsible remarks. Moreover, Yi Qinghan was just an ordinary paramount god. Clap, clap, clap. Yi Qinghan lightly clapped his hands and said indifferently, "Senior is still the sensible one, unlike some half-baked people. Their cultivation isn't high enough, yet they call themselves demon kings. Their tails have been chopped off, and even if they transform into human form, they are still just a cripple. Aren't they afraid of others laughing their heads off? Who are you? Why do you know so much?" The Lich King's anger burned as he coldly questioned. "This marshal is Zhuofeng, an assistant minister of the Snow Country and God World. Isn't it easy to know who you are? The pavilion master of the Beautiful Sky Pavilion controls a group of beautiful female assassins, and they are all hiding in the Fragrance Pavilion. Is there a need to know more? I can even dig out all your secrets." Yi Qinghan's lips curled up, causing others to shudder. The Lich King's mouth twitched, and his killing intent intensified. He said coldly, "Do you know the consequences of offending this old man?" Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and said indifferently, "I'm not interested in this, but I know that those who offend me will die miserably. I want this divine spear. It's best if you agree. In the future, when you see me, you'd better stay away from me. I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'll uproot your Yantian pavilion within 3 years." Arrogant and domineering, the aura of an emperor filled the auction house, and for a moment, the existence upstairs was intimidated. "I'm afraid you won't live for 3 years. This godly spear is mine for sure. As long as the owner of the divine spear agrees, my Beautiful Sky Pavilion will belong to you. I only want this pseudo-world weapon." The Lich King was cutting off all means of retreat. External resources were a burden. Only when his own strength was strong would he be truly strong. With this divine spear, even the half-step absolute realm existence upstairs wouldn't dare to speak to him in such a manner. Yi Qinghan shook his head and said indifferently, "I won't raise the price anymore. I can tell you the name of the divine technique that can be cultivated to the pseudo-world lord level. It's the flowing water sword technique, Xiaoliu Shui's famous sword technique. Everyone here is an overlord, so you should know the origin and power of the flowing water sword technique." Boom! Xuezhihuang stood up excitedly. Even the God Lord and Xiaoye were stunned. Chapter 1353. Xiaolu Shui was an existence even more terrifying than Ling Yan. At least in terms of individual combat strength, Xiaolu Shui was already a king and was titled Human Ancestor. He was the number 1 person below the Sector Lord and was definitely a paragon. However, after being titled Human Ancestor, he disappeared in less than half a year, which was about 300 years before the Battle of the Great Wasteland Domain. Sword force flowing like an immortal, one move breaking through the 9 world. This was the description of Xiaoliu Shui's strength. However, no one knew that this Xiaolu Shui had challenged Yi Qinghan and was killed by Yi Qinghan in 3000 move. His soul and memories were stolen, and a complete set of techniques was stolen. Only when he recovered the memories of the Sector Lord's soul did he slowly recall this sword technique. Its power was boundless. It was definitely a top-level existence. Is this true? Do you have proof that the secret technique in your hands is the flowing water sword technique? An old man walked out from upstairs. His immortal aura radiated in all directions, and he was filled with treasure light. He was right in front of Yi Qinghan, but it felt like he wasn't a mountain, like he was looking at fog. It was very vague. This was the half-step paragon. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes to look at the old man. He was sure he didn't recognize him. He should be a rising star. Otherwise, there was no way he wouldn't recognize him. The old man was also staring at Yi Qinghan. His eyes were like lightning, moving one's soul, making one not dare to look straight at him. The anticipation in his eyes was thicker than anyone else's. Because he knew Yi Qinghan, he naturally understood the power of the flowing water sword technique. It seems Senior knows the flowing water sword technique. Then please give me a decent divine sword. Junior will display the essence of the flowing water sword technique. 3 moves will be enough to prove that my sword technique is the flowing water sword technique. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. The old man waved his hand, and a supreme god weapon appeared. Divine light accompanied it, shaking the entire auction house. The sound of the sword resounded in the room, extremely pleasing to the ear. This is the clear wind sword, ranked 4th of the 10 great ancient swords. Yi Qinghan said in surprise. This old man is curious. Who are you? Why do you know so much? Not to mention you, even the current king of hell, Xuezhi and the sect master of the divine sect don't know about the 10 great ancient sword. How do you know? The old man frowned and asked. Sword out of the clouds, momentum like flowing water, standing like an immortal, smiling at all living beings. Yi Qinghan looked at the old man and whispered a few words. The elder's eyes were filled with shock, and his fingers trembled as he hoarsely asked, You're a descendant of human King Shao? Successor of another generation? He's still alive? Yi Qinghan smiled but did not say anything. The more he said, the more mistakes he would make. It was best to give such a vague answer so that he could change his words when he was about to be exposed. After all, he did not personally admit that he was Shao Liushui's descendant. The old man looked pensive as he extended his hand and placed the clear wind sword in Yi Qinghan's hand. Yi Qinghan gripped the Qingfeng sword and instantly became one with the sword. It was as if he was born with a sword body. With a light shake of his wrist, the sword will condensed and the way of the sword roared. Yi Qinghan's figure moved in the narrow auction house like an immortal. His figure was elegant like flowing water. Sword like flowing water, breaking through the 9 worlds. Xiu, the sword light was like lightning. In this narrow space, Yi Qinghan could control it very well. The tip of the sword broke through the void and went straight for the Divine Master's throat. Before the sword reached him, the sword chi had already locked onto his throat. Humph! The Divine Master was shocked. His figure suddenly retreated and he almost fell down in panic. He supported himself with one hand on the table and leaned back. The sword chi swept past his face. Divine sword out of the sheath, overlooking all living beings. Swish! The sword light swept across like starlight. Wherever it passed, all living beings withered. The Divine Master was directly enveloped by it. The sword chi easily attacked the Divine Master's body. HHH! The Divine Master screamed and used his trump card. The pseudo-world artifact was taken out. The chi rushed through the galaxy and the auction house was almost blown away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's sword gently swiped across the Divine Master's neck. His figure flashed and returned to the old man's side. He looked at the bloody wound on the Divine Master's neck with a sinister smile. The power of his sword was self-evident. If Yi Qinghan was at the same level as the Divine Master, he could have killed him in an instant. The Divine Master would not have been able to use the pseudo-world artifact and would have died. The Divine Master was furious. He stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. If it were not for the old man, he would have pounced on him and crushed him. Snow Godlord, please don't be angry. I was just demonstrating the flowing water sword technique for you to see. Your cultivation is the worst here. As a junior, I could only choose you. I hope you won't be angry, Yi Qinghan said with a smile. Gotcha! The Divine Master was so angry that he clenched his fist. His veins were popping out. His hatred for Yi Qinghan and the Divine Bird had surpassed everything. This pair of master and servant had played the Divine Master like a monkey. At that moment, the Divine Bird slowly flew out of the bloodline. He looked at the Divine Master with a shocked expression and said wretchedly, "Oh, isn't this the great Divine Master? Why is your face red again? Did the Divine Sect lose something again?" It would have been better if the Divine Bird had not come out. Now that he was out, his words were enough to anger someone to death. The Divine Master could not catch his breath. His blood was unstable, and he spat out a mouthful of essence blood. He looked at the Divine Bird and Yi Qinghan with a pale face. The sharp light in his eyes was like a divine knife that could slice a person alive. Cough, cough. The Divine Master was already injured. At that moment, he was about to explode. "I say, Snow God Master, why are you so hot-tempered? Can't you be a little calmer? You're the Divine Master, and you're at the top of the hierarchy. You should be calm and take care of your juniors. How did someone as petty as you manage to cultivate to this level?" The Divine Bird mocked in disdain. Huff, huff, huff. The Divine Master's breathing was rapid. He staggered back a few steps and sat on a chair in front of him. His hands could not stop trembling. Tisk, tsk, tsk. This person is useless. He'll be like this for the rest of his life. He's so narrow-minded. How can he break through? The Divine Bird sighed and shook his head with a look of disappointment. After that, he ran back into Yi Qinghan's body, leaving a group of people looking at each other. Xue Zhihuang actually felt pity for the Divine Master. Yi Qinghan and his spiritual pet were too infuriating. If it were any other expert, they would not be able to endure such humiliation, not to mention the sect master of the Archaean sect. The elder beside Yi Qinghan wanted to say something but stopped. He did not know what to say for a moment. He was completely stunned by the Divine Bird's despicable behavior. PFFT, ha 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 ha, Xiao Yu was the first one who could not hold it in. She laughed loudly and covered her chest with her jade-like hands. As for the experts from the other 6 realms, they naturally did not give face. How could they not laugh when they saw an overlord being angered to such an extent and not knowing what to do? Ha 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 ha! The auction house was filled with laughter. It was deafening. Yi Qinghan shrugged. Seeing how angry the Divine Master was, he immediately tried to persuade him. Sect Master Xue, don't be so calculative with a feathered beast. Otherwise, wouldn't you be lowering your status and comparing yourself to a feathered beast? Zuofeng, you've gone too far. From today onwards, I'll fight you to the death. I'll make you and your spiritual pet regret this. The Divine Master glared at Yi Qinghan and roared with a hoarse voice. Yi Qinghan curled his lips and returned to his seat. He looked at the elder and said, "Senior, can you tell that the sword technique I used was the flowing water sword technique?" The elder nodded slightly and said with certainty, "I've seen Xiao Renwang before. I've also seen him fight. Although your aura was a little weak, it was indeed the flowing water sword technique." Yi Qinghan smiled proudly. He looked at the metal box and said lightly, "This pseudo-world treasure divine spear is mine. Does anyone have any objections?" Chapter 1354. Does anyone have any objections? It was a simple sentence, but it was filled with an irresistible will. His black hair fluttered without any wind, and his deep eyes scanned the crowd. The experts of the 7 realms all looked at him with hostility, but they couldn't offer a better price to move the owner of the divine spear. Just then, a masked man in black appeared on the roof. His cloak was made of special materials, and it was obvious that he didn't want to expose his identity. As long as Marshal Zhuo can promise that the Hidden Dragon State will forever be a holy land, and that the Divine Nation will not interfere with anything in the Hidden Dragon State, you can get this divine spear. The masked man's voice was deep and hoarse. Yi Qinghan looked at the masked man in black and nodded without hesitation. He replied, "Yes, not only can I promise, but so can the 9th Emperor. The Hidden Dragon State will be a holy land in the Divine Nation, just like the God of Wealth City. You and your family can develop freely. Shuijihuang looked at the divine spear with anticipation and nodded in agreement with Yi Qinghan. Thank you, Marshal Zhua, thank you, Ninth Emperor. The masked man in black bowed emotionally. Yi Qinghan looked at the masked man in black. From the energy ripples on his body, he could tell that he was at most at the peak of the paramount realm. Furthermore, he and the Ninth Emperor were bowing to him, so he could tell that this masked man had yet to reach the peak of the paramount realm. He was probably at the upper or lower level. If that's the case, then it's a deal, the elder from the Mu family said in a low voice. The deal was made, and some people didn't even have time to bid. The Lich King, who was determined to get it, looked at Yi Qinghan with a murderous look. He seemed to hate him more than the Divine Master. An existence like the Lich King needed a pseudo-world artifact too much. Pseudo-world artifacts were rare, so rare that other than the Divine Sect, even the Lich King didn't have one. The royal family might have a pseudo-world artifact, but unless the royal family was about to be destroyed, they wouldn't use it. As for the Bien family's Incher's pot, who knew where they got it? Unfortunately, it had become Yi Qinghan's wedding dress. Yi Qinghan's silhouette flickered and appeared beside the iron box. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the iron box. It weighed millions of pounds, but he held it as if it was an ordinary iron box. It was hard to imagine how ridiculous his physique was. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan lifted the lid of the metal box. The divine spear inside the box released a divine light that shot up into the sky. The pressure spread out in all directions. The weaker paramount gods were unable to withstand the pressure, and even the elders of the Mu family were sent flying. Thud! Thud! Yi Qinghan took a few steps back. His face was pale, but he was filled with excitement. His big hand held the divine spear tightly. The power of the world was vast and mighty, causing the ground to tremble and the room to shake. Everyone was forced to release their divine power to resist. Whoosh! Hiss! Yi Qinghan gently waved his hand and the void was torn apart. His spear was held vertically behind him. The 2-meter-long heavy spear matched with his vigorous body, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. He was like an immortal, attacking everyone's line of sight. Pa pa pa! That half-step absolute realm expert from the Mu family couldn't help but clap his hands. He smiled and said, "A hero is matched with a beauty, and a heavy spear is given to a hero. Little brother, you are a dragon among men with an imposing appearance. Just based on this aura, this old man feels that you are worthy of owning this divine spear." To be praised by a half-step absolute realm expert was simply a great honor. Even the Lich King would be excited for half a day. However, Yi Qinghan remained calm. He lowered his head slightly and bowed. "Senior, what do you think the name of this spear should be? You are the owner of the spear. You can name it." This old man also wants to know what kind of name is worthy of such a spear. The old man from the Mu family stared at Yi Qinghan and said with anticipation, "Then this junior will embarrass himself. I will call it world-piercing. What does senior think?" Yi Qinghan smiled. "World-piercing? Ah, little friend, you are too arrogant and domineering. Do you want to break the 9-world sky?" The old man from the Mu family laughed wildly. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and was a bit shy. It could be considered that he agreed with the old man from the Mu family. Arrogant and domineering! Everyone shouted angrily, especially the other 6 worlds and the Lich King. Their eyes were no longer filled with hostility, but killing intent. It is always good to have ambition. Everyone, calm down. Marshal Zhua, please keep the world-piercing spear. We will continue to auction the other materials," the old man from the Mu family said calmly. His smile made everyone quiet down. No one dared to retort. This was the strongest existence that appeared so far. No one dared to be impudent. Even Yi Qinghan had to be respectful. Otherwise, if the old man from the Mu family wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Yi Qinghan merged with the world-piercing spear and stepped back into his private room. At this moment, his aura was even stronger. His words and actions carried the pressure of the world-piercing spear. His use of the power of the world was even more detailed. His words and actions carried the power of the world. With two great pseudo-world weapons, in addition to the two from before, the insane sect had four. It could be said that they had a strong foundation. Now, as long as there were no complete realm cultivators, the insane sect could destroy any terrifying power, including the Lich King. Since no one could get a pseudo-world weapon, they had to settle for the next best thing. They wanted to get the materials and create their own pseudo-world weapon. Xiaoye moved her body restlessly. She only needed 3 materials to create a pseudo-world weapon. This time there were 5 auctioned. She was determined to get them. As long as she had a pseudo-world weapon, she could still look down on everyone and ignore existences like the Lich King. So what if the Divine Master had a foundation? Yi Qinghan was extremely calm. He did not seem to be interested in these materials. However, Xue Zhihuang was very interested. His eyes shone with a light. Yi Qinghan glanced at him from the corner of his eye. His face was expressionless. Xue Zhihuang was not one of them. He might be able to get one of the materials, but the rest had to be obtained by Xiaoye or bought by him. The first material is a meteorite from the outer realm. It contains the supreme diamond gravel. It cannot be refined without a top-grade divine flame. Everyone, do your best. There are not many existences who can create a pseudo-world weapon. Otherwise, you will feel powerless when you get the materials. The elder from the Mu family walked out from the back with a gloomy face. He did not look good and his voice changed. Yi Qinghan was caught off guard. He opened the metal box outside the world-piercing spear and was sent flying by the aura. He had lost all face. Yi Qinghan's consciousness entered Xiaoye's sea of consciousness again. He said indifferently, "You will fight for it. I have offended so many people. Even if they do not need it, they will still fight for it." The Mu family elder glanced at Yi Qinghan and said in a muffled voice, "The starting price of the meteorite is 500,000 snow-step divine stones. Each bid must be no less than 1,000. Yi Qinghan smiled apologetically. He then looked away and pretended not to see anything. He ran to the side and took out the divine spear to play with. He would occasionally release his aura to attract everyone's attention. Xiaoye was bidding while Yi Qinghan was covering for her. This made the Lich King and others unable to calm down. 550,000 snow-step divine stones. Xiaoye called out a high price. Boom! Yi Qinghan activated the world-piercing spear. His aura enveloped everyone. It was as if he was going to attack and kill. Everyone in the room was furious. Chapter 1355. Yi Qinghan would activate the world-piercing spear from time to time. His divine might carried a chilling aura that enveloped everyone, but he did not attack. Everyone looked at him with dissatisfaction, but he was playing with the divine spear thoughtfully. From time to time, he would discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the divine spear with the divine bird. His serious expression made everyone even angrier. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen such a handsome divine bird before?" The divine bird stared at everyone and said majestically, "Humph!" The Lich King snorted and pressed his palm on the table. His soul turned into a sharp sword and pierced into the divine bird's sea of consciousness. The soul attack of a pseudo-world lord was definitely terrifying. If one was caught off guard, it could even kill an expert who had just entered the supreme realm. "Oh!" The divine bird cried out miserably and fell on the table with its legs facing the sky. There was no sign of life. Its pure white feathers instantly dimmed. Its eyes were wide open as if it died with grievances. "Lecherous snake! You're courting death!" Yi Qinghan was furious. He held the divine spear tightly and his aura enveloped the Lich King. Terrifying battle aura was emitted, causing his black hair to flutter. He looked like a mad demon. Stop. This is an auction house, not a place for you to behave atrociously. The expert from the Mu clan appeared again. He looked at the divine bird's lifeless eyes and its dim feathers. It should be dead. He frowned at the Lich King and said coldly, "It's not that you don't know that you're not allowed to fight here. But Lich King, you're not giving me any face. I'll ask you to leave now. You can't participate in this auction anymore." It was the one who provoked me first. The Lich King was anxious. Even if he couldn't get the pseudo-world artifact, he could at least get some materials. He might have a chance to forge one. I said, "Please leave. Don't make me do it." The old man from the Mu clan shouted coldly. The Lich King immediately withered. His hair stood on end, and he felt that his blood and chi were not flowing smoothly. He could only choose to leave. Now that the strongest Lich King had been chased away, the pressure on everyone lessened a lot. However, the room was still cold, and the atmosphere was so cold that it made it hard for people to breathe. The room was completely silent. Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand to check if the divine bird was still alive. At this moment, the divine bird quickly got up and beat its chest with its wings. It said in relief, "Oh my God, you scared this divine bird to death. Luckily, I pretended to be dead and escaped." At this moment, the corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He wished he could slap it away. Black lines appeared on the Mu family's elder's forehead. He thought it was dead, so he threw the Lich King out. Who knew that this little bastard was faking its death? Moreover, he had acted so well that he had even fooled himself. Ahem. Yi Qinghan noticed everyone's disdainful looks and the frown on Elder Mu's face. He felt a little embarrassed, so he coughed awkwardly and said, "Please don't laugh at me. It didn't do it on purpose." The divine bird immediately said in a serious tone, "That guy was too strong. I had no choice but to pretend to be dead. Why are you looking at me like that?" Yi Qinghan flew into a rage out of humiliation. He felt that he had lost all his face. He forcefully pulled the divine bird back into his body and smiled. Xiaoya was laughing so hard that she almost couldn't breathe. She even forgot to bid. This was definitely the first time she had seen something like this. However, she was curious as to how the divine bird had escaped the soul attack of the Lich King. She didn't know that the divine bird's soul was definitely powerful. It was basically impossible for an ordinary person to kill it with just their soul. The Mu family's elder looked at everyone innocently. No one bid. He asked several times, but no one responded. Finally, he realized that everyone's attention wasn't on the pseudo-world artifact material at all. Instead, it was on the divine bird. "You've already asked 3 times. This meteorite is mine." Xiaoya rushed onto the stage and threw down a yin and yang ring. She put the huge meteorite into the ring and turned to leave. Only then did everyone remember that they were in the middle of an auction. The Mu family's elder's mouth twitched. Such a huge meteorite had been sold for 550,000. It was definitely a low price. However, there was no other way. The deal had been made. It was impossible to take it back now. Helpless, the Mu family's elder could only take out the second pseudo-world artifact material. It was a piece of life wood. It was only the size of a palm, but it contained endless life. However, humans couldn't absorb it. It could only be used as a repair material for pseudo-world artifacts. It was also a necessary material for pseudo-world artifacts. Pseudo-world artifacts had very powerful self-repair abilities, but they weren't omnipotent. Something as abnormal as the feather spirit garment was definitely one of a kind. Once a pseudo-world artifact was damaged by more than 50%, it was basically useless. However, the feather spirit garment was different. As long as its origin wasn't damaged, it could be repaired after a certain amount of time. This life wood is equivalent to the pseudo-world artifact's soul. It is one of the most important materials. The starting bid is 1,000,000 snow step divine stones. Each bid must not be lower than 10,000. The Mu family's elder said in a deep voice. The experts from the True Spirit Domain, Ultimate Martial Domain, Void Domain, Supreme Domain, Divine Martial Domain, and Six Beast Domain immediately became alert. Most of them lacked this material. Xiaoya also lacked this material. Thus, everyone began to bid crazily. 1,500,000. 1,500,000. 2,000,000. In order to obtain the life wood, the various divine kingdoms desperately bid. Every bid was 100,000 or even 500,000. Xiaoya quickly couldn't take it anymore. Hell didn't earn many divine stones. That old fart only wanted to train her. Xiaoya herself wasn't good at making money. Most of the time, she used resources and materials to exchange. 2,000,000 snow step divine stones was her limit. At this moment, she had no choice but to look at Yi Qinghan for help. Yi Qinghan nodded, indicating for her to continue bidding. This time, it was only a secret technique. It wasn't worth much. There were many more in his sea of consciousness. However, most of them were secret techniques of the Great Wasteland domain. He couldn't take them out. 3,000,000. Soon, everyone shouted out in anger. The bidding reached its climax. Xiaoya, with Yi Qinghan's support, called out 3,000,000 in one go. For a moment, everyone went silent. Even the divine lords didn't dare to bid anymore. If they paid too many snow step divine stones, it would affect the operation of the divine sex inheritance. 3,100,000. Yi Qinghan scanned the crowd. He noticed that a few old fellows' mouths were twitching. Just as they were about to bid, he suddenly raised his hand and raised the price by 100,000. Xiaoya was stunned. She didn't understand what Yi Qinghan wanted to do. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted, "Continue to raise the price by 30,000. Only then can we obtain the life wood." When Xiaoya heard this, she immediately called out a price of 3,130,000. Yi Qinghan pretended to hesitate, but the others were even more hesitant. This was because Xiaoya's bidding momentum was too strong. It was as if she was determined to obtain it. There was no need to offend a terrifying assassin organization when she couldn't obtain it. After a long while, no one bid. Yi Qinghan struggled for a moment before giving up. In the end, Xiaoya obtained the life wood. Chapter 1356. Out of the remaining 3 true treasure materials, Xiaoya took one. After she obtained 3 materials, she stopped bidding. Yi Qinghan was not interested in these materials because they were too difficult to find. Even if he obtained the last 2 materials, he would have to waste a lot of time to gather all the materials needed for a pseudo-world treasure. It was not worth it. In the end, Yi Qinghan carved the flowing water sword technique on the stone tablet and handed it to the auctioneer of the godly spear. The deal was officially done. As for the hidden dragon state, he gave the order and the hidden dragon state overlord left immediately. However, the prefecture soldiers stayed behind. Yi Qinghan wasn't interested in how he would develop the hidden dragon state. After the auction ended, he looked at Xiaoya and left the auction house with Shuejihuang. As soon as they left the auction house, 2 gloomy killing intents shrouded Yi Qinghan. One of them was the most obvious. The God Lord chased after Yi Qinghan from the auction house. His sharp eyes stared at Yi Qinghan's back. The other one came from outside the city. There was a powerful pseudo-world lord. No one could lock onto Yi Qinghan so quickly. The only pseudo-world lord Yi Qinghan had offended was the Lich King. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. The people from the insane sect gathered. They were all very powerful. As long as they weren't like that old monster from the Mu family, it wouldn't take them much effort to kill an ordinary pseudo-world lord. Plus, Shurgo had a pseudo-world treasure stone brick. Yi Qinghan had 2 pseudo-world treasures. Yi Qinghan's hand shook and the world-piercing spear appeared in his hand. His godly aura soared and the world rumbled. His battle-intent soared. Jiang Jingtian looked at the world-piercing spear and his pupils shrank. He was like a pervert looking at a beauty. He loved it to the bone. His expression that hadn't changed for 10,000 years finally showed some emotion. His handsome and wild face revealed a covetous smile. Yi Qinghan smiled and pushed the world-piercing spear into Jiang Jingtian's hand. He said indifferently, "We've known each other for so long. I don't have much to give. This world-piercing spear is for you." Jiang Jingtian was dumbfounded. Such a powerful divine weapon might not appear even once in countless epochs, yet Yi Qinghan was actually giving it to him. Boom! Boom! The blood vessels in Jiang Jingtian's body swelled up. The pressure of a Kirin enveloped him, and he was filled with a wild nature. His handsome face was filled with joy and gratitude. He wanted to reach out and take it, but he didn't feel too good about it. Yi Qinghan said resolutely, "Drinking strong liquor, treasured spears, I know what kind of weapon suits a person. You and I are brothers, so there's nothing much to say. If you like it, if it suits you, then take it." Jiang Jingtian pursed his lips and smiled. Without any hesitation, he reached out and grabbed the spear. In an instant, he became one with the spear. He was even more imposing than Yi Qinghan. It was as if this spear was born for him. Boom! Jiang Jingtian's aura soared into the sky. He stood upright like a javelin. The world-piercing spear in his hand constantly trembled, as if he was extremely excited. When he became one with the spear, the master would be excited. Naturally, the spear would be even more excited. "Thank you." Jiang Jingtian took a deep breath and said to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. He patted Jiang Jingtian's shoulder and said with a smile, "What are you thanking me for? There's still a tough battle ahead. How can I thank you?" Everyone laughed. They all understood Yi Qinghan. Some words didn't need to be said. Xuejihuang looked at Yi Qinghan's back and suddenly understood what charisma was. Such a person was willing to pay a high price to recruit brothers. That was why he could gather so many people to work for him. He's a descendant of Lord Xiaolu Shui? If that's the case, then it's fine. But his ambition is too great. He will either drag the divine nation into eternal damnation or lead the divine nation to rule the 9 worlds. But when that time comes, will the divine nation's power still be in the hands of the royal family? Xuejihuang didn't dare to confirm Yi Qinghan's identity, but he didn't dare to offend him now. Yi Qinghan ignored Xuejihuang. Now that he had something on Xuejihuang, Xuejihuang couldn't escape. Yi Qinghan frowned and said, "Ninth Emperor, I need your help later. You, Jingtian, and a few other brothers will hold back the Lich King. Leave the Divine Lord to me and Shurgo. This time, we don't need to kill them. We need to at least severely injure them and snatch the pseudo-world weapon from the Divine Lord." It was indeed a little dangerous for a group of supreme gods to deal with a pseudo-world lord. However, Jiang Jingtian had the world-piercing spear and the Lich King didn't. They still had a chance. Moreover, Xiao Yu was supporting them. It would be harder for the Lich King to kill them. Xuejihuang looked at the group of people beside Yi Qinghan. Jiang Jingtian alone was a great expert. There was also Li Feng, Mo Li, Tong Tong, Xiao Yu, Xian Yan and the other seniors of the insane sect. With him, it would be easy to hold back the Lich King. No problem. Xuejihuang nodded and said, "Let's go out of the city." After saying that, Yi Qinghan led the group out of the city with their divine weapons. The group's aura soared to the sky. It shocked the overlords so much that they didn't dare to block their way. They all retreated to the sides of the official road. The Divine Lord stared at the backs of Yi Qinghan and the others. He clenched his fists and was hesitating if he should make a move. The Heavenly King came to the side of the Divine Lord and asked in a low voice, Dao brother, are you going to make a move? Take the chance and snatch the pseudo-world weapons from Zhuofeng's group. You and I will work together. Zhuofeng's Incher's pot and Shiji's stone brick will be mine. That world-piercing spear will be yours. What do you think? The Divine Lord asked with a hoarse voice. This operation will be very dangerous. Don't forget that Shuejihuang is still here. He can mobilize the Falcon Squad at any time. Once we are surrounded, even if you have the pseudo-world weapon, you won't be able to survive. The Heavenly King hesitated for a moment. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think Shuejihuang is also looking for a chance to kill Zhuofeng. This guy's power is expanding too fast. Shuejihuang will definitely be wary of the Zhua Marshal's residence. I believe that after we make a move, Shuejihuang will find a chance to kill us. The Divine Lord revealed an evil smile and followed out with determination. The Heavenly King was dressed in white, but he had an eerie aura that made people feel uncomfortable. His sharp eagle eyes looked at Yi Qinghan's back through the mask. After a long time, he finally chose to follow. The experts from the other 6 realms didn't want to make a move in the Snow Nation's divine realm. Whether it was to fight for the supreme treasure or to kill Yi Qinghan, it wasn't worth it for them. Once they made a move, they would definitely alarm the Supreme Realm Lord. When the time came, the Realm Lord would be angry and kill them with a wave of his hand. The auction house was covered in dark clouds. The sky was pressing down as if doomsday had arrived. At this moment, Si Wu, Di Ling and Ji Sha of Hell quietly appeared in the city and followed Xiao Yu from afar. After Yen Yunbei settled the Snow Emperor's spirit, he returned to the auction house alone. On the street, he bumped into Yi Qinghan and gave him a slight hand gesture, indicating that everything was done. Yi Qinghan glanced at Yen Yunbei and nodded slightly. Looking at Yen Yunbei's disappearing figure, his smile became wider. This time, I want to see if your Divine Sect's foundation can withstand the fury of the Kuang sect. Yi Qinghan's battle intent surged as he looked at the city gate. Even though he knew that the pseudo-world lord was waiting for them, he still rushed out without hesitation. Chapter 1357. The blue dome of heaven pressed down and a gust of wind wreaked havoc. A gust of cold wind swept up the fallen leaves into the clouds. Yi Qinghan and Jiang Jingtian held their pseudo-world treasures and emitted a dense world power. The pressure caused everyone to not dare to make a sound. Having a pseudo-world treasure and not having one were 2 completely different matters. Whether or not one could activate the pseudo-world treasure was another matter. Pseudo-world treasures could recognize their own masters. Those without such ability, even if they had a great opportunity, like the person who obtained the world-piercing spear, could only sell it in exchange for other resources. They could not use it for themselves. Coincidentally, the world-piercing spear was very suitable for men like Jiang Jingtian who were filled with wild and explosive nature. He also had the Qilin bloodline. Even though he was holding the world-piercing spear, he could still move like the wind and rain. As for Yi Qinghan, there was no need to mention him. When it came to comprehending the world power, if he said he was number 1, no one would dare to say they were number 2. With 2 monstrous geniuses holding pseudo-world treasures, so what if the Divine Master was 2 levels higher? If he could withstand 3,000 moves without dying, it meant he was powerful. Later, you will surround and kill the Lich King first. After the Divine Master makes his move, you will retreat and help me. Yi Qinghan whispered. If the people from heaven help him, will you be able to escape? Jiang Jingtian looked worriedly at the white-robed Divine Master of Heaven. He was a little worried. When experts exchanged blows, one's life could be taken in an instant. Yi Qinghan smiled confidently. As long as the Realm Lords and Absolute Circle experts did not make a move, no one could kill him. After all, the Yuling robe's abnormal defense was not something anyone could break. As for the soul, other than the realm lords, no one could destroy it. Don't worry, they cannot break my defense. I only need an excuse. As long as they make a move, it will be fine. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Everyone quickly walked out of the city. Shirgul was already prepared. His face was red and his hands were trembling. He had long wanted to show off his skills. If he could kill the Lich King today, he would gain face. As soon as they left the city, they saw the Lich King standing not too far away. As one of the few fake realm lords, he was confident that as long as he acted, he would be able to kill a few overgods with ease. Thus, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Yi Qinghan stepped out of the city and looked at the Lich King's arrogant appearance. At the same time, he transmitted a message to everyone. This Lich King's true form is that of a snake. It doesn't have a tail, and its fatal weakness is its lower body and throat. The other parts of its defense are even more terrifying than godly armor. It's impossible to break through, especially its head. Brat, you were very arrogant just now. Come with me if you have the gut. If you don't come, then be my grandson. Sooner or later, I will make sure that everyone around you dies. The Lich King coldly looked at Yi Qinghan and gave the order to fight to the death. Do I even need to personally kill you? Just a little tailless snake. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. He raised his eyes and gestured with his hand. Please, let's go to the wilderness. Let's see if you can survive today. Humph! The Lich King coldly snorted and soared into the sky. Whoosh! The people of the Kuang sect followed closely behind. Divine light shone in all directions, and the pressure was overwhelming. A group of elites suppressed many of the older generation. The golden light paved the way, and the dark clouds covered the sky. In the blink of an eye, they were torn apart by the strong cultivators, and the golden light shone on the earth. The old man from the Mu clan stood on the roof, his clothes fluttering behind him. His gaze was cold and piercing like torches, piercing through everything. He could actually see through the shackles of the Kuang sect and the Lich King. At this moment, a handsome young man appeared on the rooftop. He had a graceful bearing and was dressed in white. He was definitely a rare fine young master since ancient times. He looked gentle and weak, about 1.8 meters tall. No one would have guessed that he was the top expert of the Mu family, Mu Junxing. He was an existence comparable to Mu Yunfeng and the others. He said respectfully, Patriarch, you were looking for me? Yes, Junxing. Follow them and take a look. You have too little combat experience. Perhaps you can cooperate with the people of the Left General's residence to deal with the Lich King. This Lich King's strength is not bad, and he has rich combat experience. It's always beneficial to learn from him. At the same time, you can also understand the fighting methods and survival skills of the elites of the Left General's residence, the old man from the Mu clan said in a low voice. Ah, this is equivalent to participating in the battle between the Yantian Pavilion and the Left General's residence. It might even affect the Archaean sect. Didn't you dislike the clan being involved in these things? Mu Junxing asked in surprise. Chaos is upon us. No one can escape it. Either we fight or we wait for death. The Mu clan cannot remain pure. The old man shook his head and sighed. That old thing Patian came looking for me. He left me a word, stole my 8 trigrams pot, and ran away. What word? Mu Junxing asked curiously. Chaos. The old man from the Mu clan said in a deep voice, seeking opportunities in chaos. The Mu clan must take the initiative to seek opportunities, and not wait for them. Zhuofeng's origin is unknown, and I can't see through him. I can't confirm if he is Shao Liushui's disciple, nor can I confirm if he is a descendant of the Shao clan. However, he gave the divine spear the name World-Piercing. I know that he is not an ordinary person. His future will either be glorious or tragic. Boom! Just as the two were talking, the horizon was torn apart. A spear shattered space and pierced through the void. A black hole seemed to appear at the end of the sky, sucking in everything. The world energy brought along the power of thunder to destroy everything. Jiang Jingtian and Shi Gu attacked at the same time. Boundless heaven and earth, brick erect, vault of heaven open. Boom! The brick enlarged infinitely and was swung up by Shi Gu. The edge of the brick carried a terrifying attack and smashed towards the Lich King's head. The vault of heaven was directly shattered, and half of the sky fell into chaos. Mo Li and Li Feng attacked from the side at the same time. Although they did not have the power of the world, they had the power to destroy heaven and earth. One attacked the throat and the other attacked the lower body. Open! Jiang Jingtian's veins bulged, and his Qilin bloodline erupted. His spear pierced forward, and it seemed to have the power to pierce a world. A huge whirlpool swept up, enveloping the Lich King within. Other than facing it head-on, the Lich King had no other choice. The Lich King was furious, and a bone appeared in his hand. It was the spine of Yi Qinghan's right-hand man, the resentful dragon. It was 1 meter long, and it was the toughest piece. It was filled with the power of the world, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a pseudo-world artifact. Bang! The world-piercing spear and the resentful dragon's spine collided, and the power of the world spread out in all directions. The qi soared into the galaxy, shattering 1,000 li, and even the mountain range was flattened. The spine was wrapped by the Lich King's power of the world, and there wasn't even a crack on it. The recoil of the qi directly sent Jiang Jingtian flying. Just as the electric sparks flashed, Shi Gu smashed the brick at the back of the Lich King's head. The edges of the brick emitted a sharp light. If it hit the back of the Lich King's head, it would definitely cause his head to bleed, and even his soul would be destroyed. Boom! The Lich King was indeed a pseudo-world overlord. The instant he dodged Mo Li and Li Feng's attack, he was still able to punch out. With the majestic power of the world, he punched the brick. Gotcha! The crisp sound of bones breaking resounded through the clouds. The Lich King roared in anger, and his virtual legs swept towards Shi Ji's waist. Chapter 1358. When the Lich King's fist landed on the corner of the brick, he realized that the brick was even scarier than a boundary weapon. It was like a mortal punching a soldering iron. He screamed in pain. He was so angry that he gave up on defending against the others. The long leg formed by the power of the world swept and kicked at Shi Ji's waist. Shi Ji's hair stood on end. If the kick was solid, it would probably break him. He was caught off guard and his body twisted like a snake. The brick was pulled from his upper right to his waist. Bang! Roar! The Lich King's kick landed on the brick, which was equivalent to his soul hitting a pseudo-boundary weapon. When a pseudo-boundary master and a pseudo-boundary weapon collided, the pseudo-boundary weapon's defense was obviously stronger. His soul felt like it was being torn apart. The Lich King screamed in pain and his face twisted. It was even more mournful than the previous scream. It was extremely ear-piercing. The souls of the arrogant sex people were almost shattered. Roar! At that moment, Xiaoya suddenly appeared. Her sword pierced through the clouds and swept away the dark clouds. The tip of her sword carried a sword aura that could tear everything apart as she attacked the Lich King's head. Xiaoya's cultivation was not inferior to Xuejihuang's. After all, she was the Lord of Hell. Her attacks were strange and untraceable. However, the Lich King's soul was extremely strong. The moment she attacked, he noticed it and dodged her attack. One sword shakes the heavens. 9 worlds shake. Roar. Swoosh. Before Xiaoya's sword stabbed into the ground, the sword momentum changed. The divine sword in her hand suddenly turned to the sky. The back of the sword turned into the tip of the sword and slashed at the Lich King. Boom. Before the sword arrived, the sword aura hit the Lich King's chest. However, his body's defense was comparable to the ancestral dragon's. His clothes were made of dragon scales. When the sword aura hit him, A mighty dragon aura blocked the sword aura. Bang! The sword aura dissipated, but the divine sword had already hit the Lich King's body. The Lich King was sent flying by the terrifying supreme god power. Xiaoye did not take the opportunity to chase after him. Instead, she quietly disappeared. Boom! Boom! Shirgu and Jiang Jingtian were at the forefront. With a spear and a brick, they pierced through the void and smashed through the clouds. Shui Nine Emperor, Mo Li, and Li Feng attacked from the start. Tong Tong, on the other hand, had learned his lesson. He had been led astray by the divine bird. His eyes darted around sneakily as he kept getting closer to the Lich King. He was waiting for the Lich King to be heavily injured so that he could kill him in one strike. Boom! Boom! Bang bang bang! All the heroes fought in a group and retreated after a single strike. They didn't give the Lich King the opportunity to deal a fatal blow. Their coordination was absolutely perfect. A total of 21 people attacked. Yan Yunbei was still in hiding. Even Yi Qinghan didn't know where he was. However, he was sure that he was waiting for an opportunity. Ji Sha, Si Wu, and the other two also didn't appear. However, Yi Qinghan could still vaguely sense their location. However, there were too many people within 100 miles. All of them were peerless experts. They were all watching the battle, hoping to gain some experience. Such a great battle had never appeared since the Great Wasteland Domain War. Yi Qinghan stood alone on a mountain peak. He was about 10 miles away from the battlefield. There were no experts guarding him in the surroundings. He was giving the Divine Master the opportunity to attack. However, the Divine Master was more cautious. He searched the surroundings for a long time and didn't find any hidden experts. The Heavenly Master also quietly approached Yi Qinghan. The bracelet on Yi Qinghan's wrist trembled slightly as if it was warning him. However, Yi Qinghan had no way to find the Heavenly Master's exact location. The Incher's pot was in his hand and could explode with a fatal blow at any time. If the Divine Master didn't attack, the Heavenly Master would definitely not take the initiative to attack. However, once the Divine Master attacked, he was absolutely confident that he could kill Yi Qinghan in one blow. Both sides were in a stalemate. The Lich King was getting more and more familiar with the insane sex attacks. He began to counterattack in an orderly manner. He actually managed to turn the situation around. The overgod weapon in the Lich King's hand was smashed. Shirgu once again made a contribution. Unfortunately, he was hit by the Lich King's palm and almost vomited blood. The Divine Master was still waiting. As long as Shirgu and Jiang Jingtian were seriously injured, the power of the two pseudo-world weapons would be lost. Then, he would be able to kill Yi Qinghan without worrying about the insane sex reinforcements. Xiaoye attacked again. Her sword forced the Lich King back and disappeared again. The Lich King was so angry that he shouted. However, he couldn't find any trace of Xiaoye. This assassination technique was definitely top-notch. It was much more advanced than Yan Yunbei's secret technique. However, she didn't have Yan Yunbei's state of mind. Even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, his expression wouldn't change. Yi Qinghan coldly looked at the battlefield. He didn't move an inch. He allowed the wind to flutter his black hair and his clothes to flutter. No matter if the insane sex people were at an advantage or a disadvantage, he had no intention of attacking. The Divine Master's eyes were fixed on Yi Qinghan's back. The two of them were separated by a mountain. His hand was pressed on the handle of the Thunder God's hammer. He was already preparing to attack. The wind and clouds were raging. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. The sky was filled with afterimages. The Lich King's aura was soaring. After not killing a single person for an hour, he was burning with anxiety. He glared at Shirgu and Jiang Jingtian angrily. If it weren't for them holding him back, Xiaoye wouldn't have the chance to sneak attack him. Shui Zhihuang wouldn't have been able to attack him continuously. The Lich King's face was pale. He didn't care about Tong Tong, who was hiding at the foot of the mountain, not far away. In his eyes, he could kill hundreds of such little guys with one slap. Shiji's mouth was bleeding. He glanced at Jiang Jingtian and signaled with his eyes that they were ready to cooperate and try to injure the Lich King. Swoosh! Jiang Jingtian got the signal. He and Shi Ge formed a pincer attack. Li Feng attacked the left side and Xue Jihuang attacked the right side. Boom! The first to move was not Jiang Jingtian but Mo Li Xianyan and the other insane sex experts. They tore the sky apart. The sky was filled with sword chi and blade radiance, blocking the Lich King's chance to escape. Whoosh! Jiang Jingtian closed his eyes. He became one with his spear and turned into a divine spear. He pierced through the 9 boundaries and destroyed the space-time with the power of thunder. His divine sense locked onto the Lich King. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the Lich King. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Lich King twisted the tip of his foot. Lightning streaked across. It was as if the sky was breaking. The clouds were pressing down. He reached out to grab the world-piercing spear. Boom! Shi Ge swung the stone brick from behind and smashed it at the back of the Lich King's head. Li Feng attacked from the left side and Xue Jihuang attacked from the right side. The timing of their attacks was almost the same. However, the Lich King suddenly spun at high speed in the air, forming a small tornado. Its tearing force was even more terrifying than a black hole. The 4 people's attacks were pulled by it and blasted toward each other. Bang! Jiang Jingtian's spear did not break the whirlpool. It blasted on Shiji's stone brick. Xue Jihuang's sword clashed with Li Feng's sword. In a split second, the power of the collision tore the Lich King's whirlpool apart. However, the 4 of them were also sent flying by each other's attack. Boom! At this moment, Xiaoya pressed down on the big net in the sky. Her sword and the attacks of the insane sect formed a sharp sword net. They kept pressing down and knocked the Lich King to the ground. Tong Tong's eyes lit up. Her small body crushed a huge mountain rock. She was like a sharp sword. Her claws tore through the void. Her tiger teeth bit at the Lich King's throat. Chapter 1359. Hua. Although Tong Tong was weak, his speed and strength couldn't be underestimated. The Lich King was pressed down by more than 10 people, and with Little Moon's support, it was unable to stop its body from falling. It could only continue to fall. However, Tong Tong dashed up from below, almost instantly reaching the Lich King's chest. Without any defense, her 2 tender arms grabbed onto the Lich King's shoulders, and her tiger fang pierced through the Lich King's throat like a sharp sword. Lich King was stunned. He didn't expect this fellow to not use a weapon and just bite directly. And in an instant, he broke through his defense and bit his most vital point, the throat. Lich King only felt a vast amount of death chi seeping into his body through Tong Tong's teeth, affecting his blood and chi. Even his strength was somewhat stagnant, unable to explode. He screamed and ignored the attacks above him, smashing his palm onto Tong Tong's head. Pung! Tong Tong's body was like paper, filled with world energy and completely torn from the inside, blood staining the sky. Pung! Little Moon exerted strength and combined with the insane sect people, smashing Lich King into the ground. Rumble! Pung pung pung! Hua! The ground caved in and dozens of attacks fell like rain, smashing onto Lich King's head. Ao ao ao! Lich King screamed and clutched his neck. Death chi filled the air and his blood and chi couldn't flow smoothly. His world energy could only barely expel the death chi. After being attacked by Shi Ge and Jiang Jingtian, his powerful pseudo-sector Lord Soul shook and could collapse at any moment. Pooh! Lich King kept coughing out blood. His body was smashed into pieces by the stone bricks. Then, Jiang Jingtian's spear smashed him even deeper. His scaled clothes were almost torn apart and his life force dissipated. He was heavily injured. Tong Tong's flesh and blood had been reconstructed, but the Lich King's attack had left him in an extremely miserable state. Even though his body had been restored, he was still madly vomiting blood. His eyes were red, but a crafty smile appeared on his face. He no longer had that resentful and angry expression. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. It seemed that the divine bird was quite powerful. It had even taught the one-track-minded Tong Tong to become shameless. Gagaga, a great teacher produces a great student. The divine bird rushed out of the bloodline and laughed maniacally. It seemed like it had been watching the battle all this time. Just as Yi Qinghan was in a daze, the divine master held the thunder god's hammer in his hand and commanded thousands of lightning bolts to surround him. They fell from the sky and tore everything apart. Boom! Ka ka ka! Tens of thousands of bolts of lightning were magnificent and majestic, as if they wanted to swallow the world. The mountain peak beneath Yi Qinghan's feet was flattened. Dark clouds covered the sky and heavy rain poured down. It was as if the sky had collapsed. The divine bird was so frightened that it shrank its head back into Yi Qinghan's bloodline. It turned into an imprint and didn't even show its head. Boom! Yi Qinghan was smashed to the bottom of the mountain. The feather spirit robe emitted a faint and mysterious glow, directly repelling the lightning. However, the power was still boundless, causing his blood to boil and his face to turn pale. Die! The divine master was burning with rage. Not only did he want to destroy Yi Qinghan, he also wanted to torture the divine bird to death. In short, he hated it as much as he wanted. He attacked with hatred and was incomparably ruthless. Although Yi Qinghan's blood was boiling, his soul wasn't in chaos. He directly activated the 5 elements profound and passed through the mountains and turned into a wisp of smoke. He appeared 100 meters away and watched the divine master attack. Not only was he not angry, but he also smiled with a chilling and evil aura. I was really worried that you would be a coward today and not attack. Yi Qinghan was calm and collected. He held the Incher's pot and looked down as if he wasn't attacked at all. He quietly appeared on another mountain peak and watched the divine master and the heavenly master attack from both sides. He appeared halfway up the mountain where he was standing just now. Half of the mountain was flattened, which showed how terrifying the divine master's attack was. The divine master's eyes flashed fiercely and said coldly, "Don't talk nonsense with him. Attack!" Whoosh! The heavenly master turned into a sword light and pierced through the void. He directly slashed past Yi Qinghan, causing the feather spirit robe to flutter. Yi Qinghan only moved slightly and dodged the attack. His body fused with the chaos beast and his speed reached the extreme. The Realm Lord's soul was also circulated to the limit. That instant was enough for him to react. Whoosh! 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 The divine master activated the thunder god's lightning hammer again. Countless lightning bolts covered 100 miles. Whoosh! 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 Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and shuttled through the lightning bolt. Even if there was an occasional lightning attack, it was neutralized by the feather spirit robe. With his speed and reaction speed, he could handle it with ease. With the divine master and the heavenly master's speed and strength, not to mention killing Yi Qinghan, it would be good if they could injure him. The people who were watching the show were stunned. Their pupils contracted. They didn't expect the intelligent left marshal to have such terrifying combat strength. Although he was only dodging, he wasn't at a disadvantage. This was enough to prove that his combat strength wasn't inferior to Muanfeng and the others. In fact, he might even be stronger. The heavenly master was anxious. He had some tricks up his sleeve and his speed was also very fast. However, when facing Yi Qinghan, he didn't have the slightest advantage. He was like a piece of trash chasing after Yi Qinghan's butt and couldn't attack him. The pressure that the divine master gave Yi Qinghan was even greater. However, before he could completely go crazy, another terrifying existence appeared. His cultivation was at the peak of the paramount realm. His sword techniques were messy, but his destructive power wasn't inferior to an orthodox peak existence. Ling Huanyu. Although his sword techniques were messy, his destructive power was indeed strong. He directly attacked the Heavenly Master. Whoosh, whoosh. Leave him to me. The Divine Master is yours. Ling Huanyu said confidently. The Divine Master was furious and scolded coldly. Ling Huanyu, this matter has nothing to do with you. Get lost. Otherwise, I'll make you disappear forever. Ling Huanyu was silent for a while. Then, he said calmly, I'm sorry. This matter has something to do with me. I've already formed an alliance with the Zhua Shuai. His matter is my matter. The Divine Master panicked. Originally, the two of them couldn't kill Yi Qinghan alone. Now, with the addition of the top 5 paramount kings from the Snow Nation blocking the Heavenly Master, there was even less of a chance to kill Yi Qinghan. On the other side, the Lich King had been ambushed by Tong Tong. His fatal injuries were getting more and more serious. He went from having the upper hand to losing his momentum. After being hit by hundreds of attacks, his head was bleeding and his vitality was fading. He immediately chose to escape. However, Kuang Zong and the others didn't stop him and allowed him to leave. This was because their target today was the Divine Master. Killing him and taking the Thunder God's lightning hammer was the most important thing. Whoosh! Jiang Jingtian and the others quickly surrounded the Divine Master and the Heavenly Master. Then, the 10,000 Snow Wolf Riders brought by Yi Qinghan and the 100 top experts from the Snow Nine Kings' residence also appeared quietly. They tightly surrounded the area. Yi Qinghan didn't even bother to attack. He looked at the Divine Master with an evil smile and said in a hoarse voice, "The Snow God sect offended their superiors. They murdered Marshal Snow and openly surrounded me. They have the intention of betraying their realm. This is an unforgivable crime. Anyone who participates in the suppression of the Snow God sect will be rewarded handsomely." Chapter 1360. As soon as Yi Qinghan gave the order, the experts in the surroundings all revealed excited expressions. Not only would they be able to beat a drowning dog, but they would also be able to express their goodwill to the Left Marshal and the Ninth Emperor, who were at the peak of their power. In the blink of an eye, those who were watching the show from the sidelines pointed their spears at the Divine Master and rushed forward. The Divine Master panicked. Now that he was surrounded by the insane sect, there was no way he could escape. With so many experts surrounding him, there was no way he could survive. "How dare you? This is a grudge between me and Zhuafeng. If you dare to interfere, I will uproot all of you after I leave." The Divine Master threatened angrily. Yi Qinghan snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "Not just you, even the Divine Sect won't be able to escape today. Assassinating Commander Yun is a heinous crime. I won't list any other crimes, but this and today's attempt to assassinate me are enough to wipe out your sect. This has nothing to do with me. Zhua Shuai, if you show mercy today, I will repay you generously in the future. Otherwise, you wouldn't want the heavenly assassins to cause you sleepless nights, right?" The Master of Heavenly Hall threatened as he looked coldly at Yi Qinghan. It would have been better if he did not threaten him. Once he did, Yi Qinghan smiled coldly and took out the Inshur's pot. With the lid in his hand, the pot flew into the sky and aimed the mouth of the pot at the ground. A ray of divine light shot out from the pot. The power of the world revolved around the 9-colored divine light and absorbed everything it saw. However, it was also under the control of Yi Qinghan. Inshur's pot, absorb all the souls of the world. Refine the heaven and earth, and form a world. Yi Qinghan rushed up to the sky and formed a seal with his palms. He activated the law of the Inshur's pot, which was completely different from Bian Ying's. He pressed his finger on the bottom of the Inshur's pot. The mouth of the Incher's pot was like a black hole that swallowed everything. Boom, boom, boom. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everything became restless and the world shook. The 1,000-meter-tall mountains were uprooted and swallowed by the Incher's pot. In the center of the battlefield, the clothes of the insane sex people fluttered, but they were not sucked away by the Incher's pot. In fact, the Incher's pot did not have any effect on them. However, the Divine Master and the Master of Heavenly Hall were different. Their eyes were on their faces and their divine power to resist the pot's pot. Boom! The God of Thunder's lightning hammer was wielded by the God of Thunder. The lightning that was filled with the power of the world clashed with the power of the world from the Incher's pot. Sparks flew everywhere. Incher's pots, eyes, eyes. Worlds he was of. His's was of his could. His eyes power. His S.A. was of S of. His. Of S the ground was constantly being torn apart and everything was being shattered. Even though the God of God and the Heavenly King had the Thunder God's lightning hammer, their bodies were still being torn apart. Their comprehension of the power of the world was far inferior to Yichinghan's. They could only passively resist, and could not forcefully counterattack. Boom! Boom! At that moment, Jiang Jingtian and Shi Gu wielded their pseudo-world treasures and attacked the two of them. The 4 pseudo-world treasures were in a chaotic battle. In an instant, it had become an unprecedented battle. The sky cracked and the surroundings collapsed. The Incher's pot fought against the black hole and gained the upper hand. It swallowed the black hole. The pot's mouth grew larger and larger. Yichinghan's godly power was sucked dry. The Divine Master and the Master of Heavenly Hall were sucked into the black hole under Jiang Jingtian and Shi Ji's attack. Their bodies were unstable, and they were sucked into the Incher's pot. However, Jiang Jingtian and Shi Gu were also swallowed. Once they were in the pot, the world in the pot became Yichinghan's territory. He was the Lord and could control everything in the pot. Unlike Bianing, who could only rely on the Incher's pot. Whoosh! The power of the world within the gourd spun madly, causing the 4 of them to feel dizzy and disoriented. Yichinghan seized the opportunity to drag Jiang Jingtian and Shi Gu out from the world within the gourd. Then, he sealed the mouth of the gourd, sealing the 2 experts within the gourd. The spectators didn't even have time to do anything. They watched as the Divine Master and the Master of Heavenly Hall were taken away by Yichinghan and the others. They were stunned. The Mu family elder and Mu Junxing, who were standing far away, were stunned. They were still talking. They thought the battle would last for at least a day and a night. They didn't expect it to end in just a few hours. The Zhuo marshal's residence had won. No one died. The Lich King was defeated. The Divine Master and the Master of Heavenly Hall were captured alive. This Zhuo Feng is so powerful. He can use the Incher's pot to this extent. His comprehension of the Incher's pot's pot is almost on par with mine. The old man from the Mu family said in a deep voice. How old is he? Judging from his appearance and life force, he is at most my age. How can he be compared to you? Mu Junxing asked in shock. I suspect that he is the reincarnation of one of the almighty experts from our era, but there was no one with his style back then. The Mu family elder narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, Could it be Senior Xiao Lushui? Mu Junxing asked curiously. No, I know Xiao Lushui. He is a romantic and elegant man. He does things like flowing water and clouds. He is incomparably carefree. His character is as elegant as the Divine King. He doesn't have the slightest bit of vulgarity. But Zhuo Feng is different. He is like a fox. Moreover, he is the most treacherous fox. Even I can't see through him. The Mu family elder shook his head. At this time, Yichinghan and the others returned to the auction house. After returning to the relay station, Yichinghan's tired face was very pale. The eruption just now had used up all of his divine power. Now, he couldn't even stand properly. After returning to his room, Yi Qinghan swallowed a large amount of heavenly treasures. But they couldn't fill up the space of his godhead and spiritual essence. His divine power quickly reverberated. The blood in his body roared once again. His vitality surged. Countless divine medicines were swallowed. It took an entire day and night for Yi Qinghan to recover. However, his divine power seemed to have improved a lot. Whether it was the quantity or quality, it was much higher than before. After recovering, Yi Qinghan's face was flushed red. He couldn't contain his excitement. Not only did his cultivation improve, but he also captured the Divine Master. He could avenge Tong Tong now. Soon, Yi Qinghan called Tong Tong to the main hall. Tong Tong also looked at Yi Qinghan with anticipation. He rubbed his fists and rubbed his palms. He couldn't wait to charge into the Inshur's pot and bite the Divine Master to death to avenge his family. Wait until I seal the Divine Master. You can torture him however you want, but you can't generate any resentment. Do you understand? Yi Qinghan reminded. I won't. Father, don't worry. Uncle Bird taught me that when facing an expert, I can't have any resentment even if I can't win. As the saying goes, 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Perhaps in a few days, I can climb on top of the Divine Master's head and pee. I feel like I can do it now, Tong Tong said with a serious face. Of course. Today, everything I taught you will be realized. This divine bird will pee on top of his head. The divine bird rushed out and said arrogantly. Yi Qinghan sneered. He mobilized the power of the world. The Inshur's pot was thrown into chaos. The Inshur's pot desperately smashed the Divine Master and the Heavenly Master deep into the filthy pool. The two of them struggled madly. The Thunder God's lightning hammer struck, but it was like they were in a barren world. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't break through this world. Chapter 1361. Yi Qinghan was controlling the Inshur's pot from the outside. The spatial turbulence within was overwhelming, and the world energy was forcefully pulling them down. After an unknown period of time, the God Master and the leader of Heavenly Hall were completely exhausted. Their godly energy was depleted, and they could only barely stand. If the whirlpool continued to wreak havoc, they would be buried in the pool below. The God Master was terrified and furious. He didn't expect himself to be reduced to such a state. He roared and howled, but his voice couldn't travel outside. The leader of Heavenly Hall was completely dispirited. His legs were powerless, and he was lying in the void, ready to welcome death. Right at this moment, Yi Qinghan appeared in front of them with the Divine Bird and Tong Tong. His smug smile made the God Master even more furious. He wanted to use the Thunder God's hammer to destroy Yi Qinghan, but this was Yi Qinghan's domain. Puh! Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand and slapped the God Master, causing him to spin a few rounds. In here, I am a god. I am your master. You should treat your master with respect. Kneel before this seat. Yi Qinghan looked down at the God Master and said in a low voice. Boom! Yi Qinghan's world overlord soul erupted from the pot. It was as though the real world overlord had appeared in front of the God Master. The will in his eyes made others not dare to go against him. The pupils of the God Master and the leader of Heavenly Hall shrunk. At this moment it was as though they had lost control of their bodies. Their souls were isolated, and their bodies were trembling. With a bang, they knelt before Yi Qinghan. You! The God Master was terrified. For a moment, he didn't know how to address Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly. He said indifferently, You still don't know who I am? You are the world overlord. The God Master said in fear. The God Master's body trembled, and his fingertips were trembling. He begged with a hoarse voice, Supreme Lord, this lowly one didn't know that you are the world overlord. Please spare this lowly one. No matter how strong a supreme god was, they were like babies in front of a world overlord. World overlord could kill them with a single thought. Other than pseudo-sector lords, no one would be able to fight against sector lords. However, even though Yi Qinghan had the soul of a sector lord, he was still a high and intermediate stage noob. Facing a pseudo-sector lord Great Circle, even if he had the Einshur pot, he was still an ant, unable to withstand a single blow. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and reached out his hand to grab the hammer of the Thunder God. You can step aside. I have nothing to say to you for now. But, God Leader, I, child pupil, have a personal grudge with you. As for your fate, it is up to him to decide. The Divine Lord was stunned. He couldn't believe it and mumbled, "How could this be? How could you possibly be the Supreme Realm Lord? The Lord of the Seven Realms is already in closed-door cultivation, and you have the soul of a Realm Lord, but your cultivation is only at the high level. Which powerful being are you the reincarnation of?" Pa. Tong Tong hated the God Lord to the core. Her small body twisted and exploded. She slapped the God Lord's face. Boom. Tong Tong's strength couldn't be underestimated. The God Lord was sent flying. Yi Qinghan's intent moved. A wall of intent appeared behind the God Lord, almost shattering the God Lord's body. However, the God Lord didn't dare to resist. The Realm Lord had already appeared. Even though he was still a high god, his soul was that of a true Realm Lord. If he didn't resist, he might still have a chance to live. But if he did, he would die. Pa. Tong Tong seemed to only know how to slap. When she hit someone, she only hit the face. Occasionally, she would try to break the spine of the God Lord. However, she failed every time. Because the God Lord's cultivation was much higher than her, other than these humiliating actions, she couldn't cause any harm to the God Lord. The God Lord was slapped until his face was red. 5 fingerprints could be seen clearly. He was thrown to the ground several times. At this moment, he was like a wronged little wife. He only hoped that the Supreme Realm Lord wouldn't bother about ants like them. However, he didn't know that Yi Qinghan wanted to kill him from the very beginning. The Heavenly Master didn't dare to say anything. Seeing the God Lord being slapped a few thousand times, and the Divine Bird even climbed up his head and peed on it, he felt disgusted. That kind of humiliation was unimaginable. God Lord, when the time comes, you can resist. This Divine Bird feels that it's boring to be beaten like this. The Divine Bird said with a wretched expression. The God Lord's mouth twitched. His eyes turned red. However, there was nothing he could do. Not to mention that he didn't want to resist. Even if he wanted to, he didn't have the strength to do so. The divine energy in his body was empty. Even his spiritual space was sealed. His life and death were in the hands of Yi Qinghan. Supreme Realm Lord, this junior is willing to submit. I beg you to be magnanimous and spare this junior. The God Lord knelt down and begged with a face full of despair. It's too boring to admit defeat so quickly, Yi Qinghan said calmly. How could this junior dare to resist an existence like you? I didn't know who you were before, so I offended you. Otherwise, even if I ate leopard guts, I wouldn't have dared to ask you for the Supreme Snow Lotus, nor would I have dared to attack the Divine Bird. The Divine Lord smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan sneered. The Divine Sect must be destroyed. No matter what this person said, he would not be able to escape death. Let's leave first and let them repent on their own. Yi Qinghan saw that Tong Tong's qi had dissipated. He guessed that Tong Tong would not turn back into the heavy resentment death child. He then brought him and the Divine Bird out of the Einshur's pot. When they reached the outside world, Xue Zhihuang was waiting in the main hall. However, he was much more obedient now. He no longer had that arrogant look on his face. This was because he was sure that not only had the Snow Emperor's spirit been taken away, even the desolate slave had been taken away. Now that he thought about the God Lord's tragic end, there was no need to guess. If he dared to disrespect Yi Qinghan, his end would be even worse than the God Lord's. Yi Qinghan brought Tong Tong into the main hall. When he saw Xue Zhihuang's respectful look, he smiled and said calmly, "Ninth Emperor, why are you looking for me?" "Zhuo Shuai, how should we deal with the Divine Sect and Heavenly Hall? Divine Sect has its own territory and the main sect knows its location. However, Heaven is a cunning rabbit with 3 burrows. It is impossible to find their headquarters. If we capture their leader like this, won't it cause great chaos?" Xue Zhihuang sighed and said helplessly, "As for Heaven, I have my own way of dealing with it. Ninth Emperor, you don't have to worry about it. However, Divine Sect has continuously assassinated the high officials of Divine Nation, the Prince, and the commander of the Snow Domain Army. Their crimes are unforgivable. I'll have to trouble Ninth Emperor to personally capture all of Divine Sect's people and bring them to me. Those below the giant god realm can be sent to the border to mine." Yi Qinghan determined the fate of Divine Sect with one sentence. Xue Zhihuang clenched his fists and thought for a moment before asking seriously, "Mr. Ling Yan has a good relationship with Divine Sect. The first God Lord of Divine Sect is still wandering around. Once they return, I'm afraid that it will be difficult to explain. When they return, I will explain it to them. Ninth Emperor, you just have to take revenge for Commander Xue," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Seeing that Yi Qinghan was determined, Xue Zhihuang did not stop him. He wanted to take this opportunity to destroy Divine Sect and take over the authority of the imperial family. Chapter 1362. That day, Xue Nine Emperor took Yi Qinghan's Snow World Army Commander seal and mobilized 1,000,000 Snow World Army soldiers. Even his own 9 Emperor Residence's personal guards were mobilized. The Hunting Eagle elite team also secretly followed and headed straight for Divine Sect. Yi Qinghan knocked on the table as Xiaoye quickly walked in. "Mobilize all the assassins in hell. I want to destroy Heaven," Yi Qinghan said firmly. "Okay," Xiaoye replied without hesitation. "Thunder God's lightning hammer, use it first. Give me the materials you bought and the materials you collected before. When Heaven is destroyed, I will help you make a handy pseudo-world artifact." Yi Qinghan took out the Thunder God's hammer and gave it to Xiaoye. Xiaoye was excited as she looked at Yi Qinghan with admiration. Her eyes glowed as she said excitedly, "I want a dagger and a glove to make a pseudo-world artifact." Yi Qinghan nodded. Seeing Xiaoye's admiring gaze, his lips curled into a smile. Xiaoye shyly threw down a dozen pseudo-world artifact materials and turned to leave the hall. "Jingtian." Yi Qinghan put away the materials and said to the door. "Yes." Jiang Jingtian stepped into the hall with a dignified appearance. "Help me inform the Wang family to capture all the women in the Fragrance Pavilion in Snow Country's Divine World. Do not miss anyone, including the Pavilion Master." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He wanted to uproot everyone in the beautiful Sky Pavilion and turn the Lich King into a general without an army. "Okay." Jiang Jingtian's words were worth 1,000 gold. He was a man of few words and left the hall after receiving the mission. Divine Sect, Heaven, and beautiful Sky Pavilion. Yi Qinghan declared war on the 3 major powers at the same time to take down Snow Country's Divine World in one blow. As for the Wang family, they didn't even know they were being played. In the end, they wouldn't even know how they died. On the 3rd day, the Wang clan and the Infernal Realm had finished their preparations and were ready to strike at any time. They were just waiting for Yi Qinghan to say the word. Yi Qinghan dragged the Heaven Leader out and took off his mask. He discovered that he was a rather charming middle-aged man. He was very handsome and cultured. "What is your name?" Yi Qinghan sat in the main hall, looking down at the kneeling Heaven's leader. The Heavenly Hall leader was terrified and replied with a trembling voice, replying to the Lord, "This junior is Li Yifeng." Yi Qinghan clenched his right fist and pressed it against his head. Leaning against the chair, he asked in a low voice, "Who is Li Yuan to you?" "It's my ancestor." "So you know him?" Li Yifeng's eyes lit up, as if he had found a way out of this predicament. The corners of Yi Qinghan's mouth quirked up, his expression cold. "Li Yuan, I don't just know him." During the battle of the Great Wasteland Domain, this man had assassinated many of his trusted generals. I do. And we're old acquaintances. Yi Qinghan laughed hoarsely. It was unknown whether he was happy or sad. "So Senior knows my ancestor. This Junior is terrified, to actually listen to a villain and cause trouble for you." Li Yifeng knelt on the ground, his heart was excited, but he did not dare to show it. "No matter, since you're Li Yuan's child, I won't fuss over it. Tell me, where did your ancestor go? Why haven't I seen him for so many years?" Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. He, Mr. Ling Yan and some of the top existences from back then had gone to some dangerous places to train, and have not returned yet. Li Yifeng bowed and replied. Yi Qinghan nodded as if nothing had happened and asked casually, "I remember that Heaven's headquarters was set up under the walls of Clear Sky Pass. Is it still there now?" Li Yifeng was shocked. Heaven's headquarters, other than some assassins, no one knew where it was, including those assassins. When they went out, they would be brought out with their eyes covered and sent to a branch. Only then would they have the opportunity to move freely. It was impossible for outsiders to know. No matter how much Li Yuan trusted someone, it was impossible for him to tell others about the headquarters. "Senior, how did you know?" Li Yifeng asked in shock. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up, his eyes looking down at Li Yifeng. From his expression, he could already guess that Heaven's headquarters had not moved, and was still in an underground palace under the city walls. "Because I'm very familiar with Li Yuan, and have a life-and-death relationship with him." Yi Qinghan's eyes were cold, his big hand grabbed the air, directly grabbing Li Yifeng's mask in his hand, and gently put it on his face. His body slightly twisted, and actually looked exactly like Li Yifeng, except that his clothes were black, while Li Yifeng liked white. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed, his divine power transformed into white clothes, his appearance imposing, his aura faintly discernible, his black hair fluttering, and he actually looked exactly like Li Yifeng. "Do I look like you?" At this moment, even Yi Qinghan's voice changed, completely merging with Li Yifeng, as if they were one person. Li Yifeng's hair stood on end. He was extremely frightened, and he roared hoarsely, "Senior, what are you doing? Let heaven go to hell." Yi Qinghan ruthlessly slapped Li Yifeng, then casually threw him into the Incher's gourd. "No. Senior, you can't do this." Within the Incher's gourd, Li Yifeng raised his head and roared, his eyes red, but Yi Qinghan did not respond. "Ha ha ha!" The Divine Master sneered at Li Yifeng's crazy appearance, as if he was taking pleasure in his misfortune. "Bastard, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have offended him. If I were to kill you..." Boom! Li Yifeng directly attacked the Divine Master. The two began to fight in the Incher's gourd, incomparably crazy. Every move was fatal, not giving face at all. However, Li Yifeng was only good at assassination. How could he be a match for the Divine Master? Soon, he was at a disadvantage. Yi Qinghan was in control of everything. He watched the fight in the Incher's gourd with interest. When he saw Li Yifeng fall, he gave him a long sword, and it was not a low-grade one. The Divine Master was barehanded. His advantage instantly turned into defeat. Yi Qinghan watched the two's performance with great interest, dog-eat-dog, killing each other. When the divine sex experts were captured, then the Hell's assassins were captured. That would be fun. When Li Yuan and the divine sect's first patriarch returned, their expressions would definitely be interesting to see. Yi Qinghan stood up, looking at the eccentric sect's solemn expressions. He suddenly laughed. Attack, an all-out war, destroy Yantian Pavilion, divine sect, and heaven. The show has only just begun. The eccentric sect's people burst into laughter. They had waited for this day for too long. Once they controlled the snow country and the divine realm, they could naturally cultivate with all their might. With the snow country as their foundation, it was enough to throw the 7 realms into chaos, let them dog eat dog, and die without even knowing how they died. Only in the end would they regret and regret. The hatred of the past was not something that could be resolved by destroying that group of people, but by making them grit their teeth in regret. I'll go first, target Qing Tian Pass. Yi Qinghan put on his mask, tore through the void, and left. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye, galloping in the void, holding the white clouds in his hand, stepping on the firmament and reaching out to touch the stars. Today, he was getting married at the bride's place. Chapter 1363. At the same time, the Wang family mobilized countless experts from all the major counties to surround the Fragrance Pavilion and capture the beauties without any reason. The Fragrance Pavilion originally belonged to the Wang family. The female assassins of the Yantian Pavilion did not understand and did not know whether to resist or not. In the end, they were sealed in their spiritual space. However, with so many fragrance pavilions in the world, there were still some who resisted. The female assassins killed many of the Wang family's experts. The Wang family was furious and joined forces with the experts of various counties to suppress them. Those who dared to resist were killed without mercy. In a split second, blood flowed like a river. Countless people died. Boom! Boom! The Snow Realm army surrounded the extreme north from all directions, which was the territory of the Snow God sect. The million-strong army was advancing step by step. With Xuezhihuang as the commander, they soon firmly controlled the experts of the Snow God sect within the inner sect. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan appeared in the Clear Sky Fortress. The Clear Sky City was located on the Clear Sky Plateau. The blue sky and white clouds were within reach. It was indescribably beautiful. Clouds and mist lingered around the city like a fairyland. The great wall-like city wall extended long and rugged like a huge dragon, overflowing with majesty. Who would have thought that there was a huge underground palace under the Clear Sky Fortress? It was like an underground world with countless assassins. If they all attacked, it was enough to destroy the entire Wang family. Yi Qinghan only knew that heaven was under the walls of the Clear Sky Fortress, but he did not know where the entrance was. Therefore, he was not in a hurry and quietly appeared in the city. Looking at the experts in the city and the people on the streets, he wanted to find the assassins of heaven. Looking around, he did not find anyone from heaven even after searching for a long time. Yi Qinghan walked on the official road as if nothing had happened. He wore a cloak and his white clothes fluttered in the wind. He had a more temperament than Li Yifeng. Especially his back, it attracted the attention of the crowd. Along the way, everyone was discussing the changes in Divine Sect and the Wang family. Some people were rejoicing in their misfortune. The Wang family and Divine Sect were high and mighty. Now that something had happened, the Wang family was killing each other and cutting off one of their own arms. This made people curious. They didn't understand why the Wang family would suddenly attack the Fragrance Pavilion. Yi Qinghan heard this and smiled without saying anything. The Yantian Pavilion had been destroyed. The Wang clan would need at least 100 years to recover. By then, the Wang clan would no longer have the right to speak. As for the Shenzong sect, the great elders had come out of seclusion and confronted Xuezhihuang. However, they did not want to fight to the death. Xue Zhihuang did not want to fight to the death with these people either. Otherwise, there would be too many casualties. Yi Qinghan was not worried about Xue Zhihuang. Xue Zhihuang was the former commander of the Snow Border Army, an existence even stronger than Marshal Xue. He had once commanded an army of tens of thousands and could even guard the borders. Destroying the divine sect was not a problem. Da. Yi Qinghan lowered his head and walked forward. He was lost in thought. His back seemed lonely. Just at this moment, a skinny boy bumped into his waist. His little hand was as fast as lightning. He wanted to reach out and take away the ancient jade pendant on his waist. That was Li Yifeng's signature clothing. Yi Qinghan looked at the boy in confusion. He released a wave of divine power from his body and sent the boy flying. "Be careful, he's a thief." Immediately after, a crisp voice sounded in Yi Qinghan's ear. A frail little girl reached out and grabbed Yi Qinghan's hand as if to remind him. Yi Qinghan did not think too much about it and retreated to the side with the little girl. However, the moment the little girl touched Yi Qinghan, she silently took away his jade pendant. If not for Yi Qinghan's strong spiritual sense, he might have been tricked by her. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He did not expose her and only smiled. "Thank you for the reminder. It's fine. Uncle, be careful. There are many thieves here." The little girl was like a fairy. After she succeeded, she smiled and turned to run. Her simple skirt fluttered as she quickly disappeared. Yi Qinghan looked in the direction the little girl had disappeared in and smiled. His figure flickered as he followed after her. In a small alley, the little girl and the little boy met up and clapped their hands to celebrate their success. "Today's harvest can be exchanged for some Emperor energy pills," the little girl said excitedly. The little boy was very young, about 5 or 6 years old. He looked at the jade pendant and licked his lips. It seemed like he wanted to eat something delicious. His eyes were bright and full of expression. "Sister, I'm hungry." The little boy's tender voice sounded. "Let's go and claim the credit. Sister will bring you to eat something good later." The little girl excitedly pulled the little boy's hand and skipped towards the end of the alley. However, she did not know that Yi Qinghan had already appeared behind her. Yi Qinghan grinned. Since he could not find the entrance to heaven, it was not a bad idea to follow the little girl and see what was going on. As the saying goes, everything has its cause and effect. Even if there was no good karma, helping others was the foundation of happiness. The little girl did not notice Yi Qinghan's trace and left the alley with the little boy. Yi Qinghan followed far behind and watched the two children enter a dilapidated courtyard. There were children everywhere in the courtyard. There were also a few middle-aged men with fierce faces. The children in the courtyard were dressed in rags and their eyes were filled with panic and fear when they looked at the middle-aged men. "Those who didn't get anything today are not allowed to eat. A bunch of trash. I've raised you for so long, but you didn't even steal a decent treasure." A middle-aged man with a fierce face glared at them. The scar on his face was shocking. The children trembled in fear. Their bodies were covered in whip scars and they were as thin as sticks. It was obvious that they had been in a state of starvation all year round. The little girl brought the little boy into the courtyard. Her eyes were somewhat timid as she extended her hand and handed over the jade pendant. It was filled with profound laws and was full of spirit chi. It was definitely a precious treasure. Good treasure. The scarred man's eyes lit up and passed the jade pendant to the others. They looked around and their eyes were filled with excitement. "Reward her with 10 Emperor energy pills and 10 Earth-ranked divine stones." The scarred man nodded and was very satisfied as he rewarded the little girl with a lot of wealth. It was enough for her to eat and drink for a period of time. Yi Qinghan stood at the top of a pavilion in the distance and looked down at the courtyard. He looked at the scarred man coldly but did not take back the jade pendant. The scarred man brought the jade pendant to an old shop. The old man of the pawn shop looked at the jade pendant with a cold glint in his eyes. He looked at the scarred man and the jade pendant before giving him 100 pieces of snow-ranked divine stones. When the scarred man left in high spirits, the old man of the pawnshop signaled a servant with his eyes and then left alone. Yi Qinghan's divine senses covered half of the clear sky keep. Not even the wind could escape his eyes. When he saw the old man leave with the jade pendant, he couldn't help but smile. "I'll wait for you guys here," Yi Qinghan muttered to himself as he watched the scarred man return to the courtyard. He only handed over 40 pieces of snow-ranked divine stones and distributed them to everyone. He hid most of them himself. Chapter 1364. The knife-scarred man hid most of the snow-step god stones and only gave them 40 pieces. Yi Qinghan smiled and didn't say anything as he watched them happily splitting the loot. They didn't know that they were about to die. Even if he didn't do anything today, the people of heaven would beat them to death. The servant who followed the knife-scarred man quietly arrived outside the courtyard. He didn't want to alert the enemy, but instead, he kept watch from a distance and informed the shop owner. The shop owner had already taken the jade pendant to Heaven's Branch, which was a luxurious mansion inside Clear Sky Keep. The person who received him was the branch leader, a middle-aged man with a gentle demeanor. He was the representative of Heaven and was only in charge of external business. Normally, when contacting the major forces, they would go through him. His cultivation wasn't very good, but his status was different. He was known as 13th Master. When he saw the jade pendant in the old man's hand, a cold light flashed and he snatched it away. "This is Master's jade pendant. Where did you get it?" 13th Master's elegant face revealed a trace of shock and anger as he asked coldly. "My lord, this old man felt that something was wrong when I saw this jade pendant. It was exchanged by a knife-scarred man, a famous hoodlum in the keep. I've already asked the servant to follow him," the shop owner quickly replied. At this moment, the communication talisman on the old man's waist flashed. He opened it and was immediately overjoyed. "My lord, I've already confirmed their location. They are in a courtyard in the refugee cave in the east of the city." 13th Master's mouth twitched. He shouted to the few burly men outside, "Gather the men and surround the courtyard. Find out how Master's jade pendant ended up in their hands." Yes, the people in this branch were all powerful guards, and there was no lack of giant gods among them. There were also some top-notch superior gods among them. About 100 people rushed toward the courtyard house in the east of the city under Lord 13th's lead. 13th Master was a person of the underworld and had connections with both the underworld and the underworld. Especially in the vicinity of Clear Sky Keep, no one dared to disrespect him. If they all moved out, nothing good would come out of it. The people on the street all made way and didn't dare to block their path. Yi Qinghan was sitting leisurely on the roof of a loft. He took a table full of divine fruits and wine and drank with the divine bird. "Divine bird, let me make a bet with you. I can sneak into heaven." Yi Qinghan took a sip of wine and said confidently, "You have the nerve to show off in front of me with this kind of retarded action? As long as this divine bird wills it, entering heaven is just a matter of waving my wings," the divine bird said disdainfully. Yi Qinghan could not be bothered with the divine bird. It was as if the bottom of the Qing Tian Keep was made of a complete piece of steel. There was no gap to be found. If it was so easy to enter the heavens, there would be no need to resort to schemes to lure out the people of the heavens. All right, this method of luring the snake out of its hole is indeed very clever. The divine bird looked at Yi Qinghan's mocking expression and could only flap its wings in approval. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything. He watched as the 13th Master led a large number of experts from the center of the city towards the east of the city. Yi Qinghan removed the banquet, drew his sword, and left. His silhouette flickered and appeared in the courtyard. The courtyard was filled with joy, but it was enveloped by Yi Qinghan's gloomy and cold aura. The knife-scarred man was shocked. He drew his sword and pointed it at Yi Qinghan. He scolded coldly, "Who are you?" "Pucci." Yi Qinghan's sharp sword swiped through the air and pierced through the knife-scarred man's throat. His speed was as fast as lightning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan didn't give the burly men any chance to retaliate. They were all killed in an instant. Bang! The moment Yi Qinghan killed everyone, he knelt on one knee and spat out a mouthful of blood. His sword stabbed into the ground as if he was heavily injured. The group of children retreated in fear, especially the little girl and the little boy. They recognized Yi Qinghan. They didn't expect that stealing a jade pendant would cause the death of so many people. Yi Qinghan was obviously pretending. Previously, the Lord of Heaven, Li Yifeng, and Yi Qinghan had a huge battle. If Yi Qinghan came back unscathed, it wouldn't make sense. Moreover, if he pretended to be heavily injured and unconscious, it would save him a lot of trouble. The 13th Master might even contact the emissaries of heaven to bring him directly to the underground city. After killing the burly men and confirming that the children weren't a threat, Yi Qinghan pretended to be unconscious and fell to the ground. Blood flowed everywhere. The servant outside was stunned. Yi Qinghan attacked too quickly and fell to the ground too quickly. He didn't even have time to react. The little girl and the little boy screamed in fear. Perhaps it was because the little girl was slightly older, but just as she was about to organize the children to leave this place, the servant rushed into the courtyard and stopped them with his sword. "Don't move," the servant warned coldly. The children trembled and looked at the servant. The servant looked at Yi Qinghan. He wanted to take off his cloak to take a closer look, but he didn't dare to. He could only wait for the shopkeeper to come over. Soon, the 13th Master led the shopkeeper and 100 burly men to surround the courtyard. Bang! The door to the courtyard house was kicked open by Lord 13. When he saw a white-clothed man lying in a pool of blood on the ground, he couldn't help being shocked. He immediately rushed over and took off his cloak. When he saw the mask of the Lord of Heaven, he was shocked. How did the Lord suffer such heavy injuries? These people obviously can't cause any harm to the Lord. The 13th Master took Yi Qinghan's pulse and found that his life force was about to dissipate. He couldn't help but turn around and glare at the servant. The servant was also shocked. He quickly knelt down and shook his head. "My lord, the Lord instantly killed them when he came in. However, after killing them, he coughed up blood and fell to the ground. This little one doesn't understand either. 13th Master, it might be that the Lord was already heavily injured. After using his divine energy, his injuries worsened and he fainted." The shopkeeper hurriedly guessed. This sentence reminded 13th Master of something. 13th Master frowned and thought for a moment before muttering to himself, "A few days ago, I heard that Lord and Divine Sex Master were captured. Could it be that Lord desperately escaped but was heavily injured?" However, the 13th Master quickly calmed down and said to the burly men behind him, "Quick, carry the Lord back to the branch. I'll go invite the Lord Emissary over." With that, the 13th Master quickly left. Yi Qinghan didn't move at all. He didn't even release his divine sense. He was only waiting for the emissary of heaven to come. Within the courtyard, several burly men carried a palanquin and carried Yi Qinghan back to the heaven branch. The dozen or so children in the courtyard were also brought back. In less than an hour, 3 emissary-level experts appeared in the heaven branch. Seeing Yi Qinghan's figure, mask, and the jade pendant, they didn't suspect anything. They reached out and took Yi Qinghan's pulse. They found that the life force in his body had dissipated. His flesh and blood were collapsing. He wasn't just heavily injured, he was on the verge of death. "It is indeed the Lord. Bring him back and ask the Lord Emissary to help. Perhaps he can be saved." one of the emissaries said firmly. With that, one of the emissaries carried Yi Qinghan on his back. One of the emissaries walked at the back and one at the front. They were extremely vigilant and quickly rushed out of the clear sky fortress. Chapter 1365. Outside the clear sky fortress, Yi Qinghan was on the back of an emissary, unable to use his divine sense. At such a close distance, he would be easily discovered, so he used the emissary's footsteps and the direction of the wind to determine the route. His powerful soul and discernment made him seem like a heavenly eye. Out of the city, we've traveled a total of 18 miles and made 3 right turns. There's no wind. There should be a mountain range in front of us. This is a valley. The mountain is 100 zhang tall. Yi Qinghan secretly calculated the terrain of this place. At this moment, there was the sound of water splashing. However, the emissary's divine power had been released, and he avoided the water as he dove downwards. By a rough estimate, he had reached the bottom of the lake after 300 feet. Boom! A huge stone door was raised, but an emissary blocked the water flow. Not even a drop of water could enter the passage. The 3 emissaries led Yi Qinghan into the underground palace through the passage. The underground palace was not dim at all. In fact, it was a world of its own. The scorching sun was high in the sky, and the landscape was picturesque. There were rivers, mountains, and birds. Everything one could imagine was there. Clouds and mist lingered on the mountainside, and water vapor rose from the river. Spiritual energy soared to the sky. This was definitely a holy land for cultivation. The vast underground palace was covered by the dome of heaven. It did not look like an underground palace at all, but more like a holy land for cultivation. Countless ancient buildings occupied the mountainside or the foot of the mountain. There was a huge palace at the peak that seemed to be suspended in mid-air. Occasionally, people would fly up. There were many experts on the ground, but they were all very low-key. The hard-working elites were faintly discernible, but the moment the 3 emissaries appeared with Yi Qinghan on their backs, they all quieted down. The entire underground palace was in a state of silence. Everyone was focused on Yi Qinghan on the emissaries. Quickly inform the Grand Elder. The Lord has been severely injured and his vitality has dissipated. The leader of the emissaries shouted in a deep voice. Hua! In the eyes of these assassins, Li Feng was like a god. Now that he was severely injured, it was somewhat inconceivable. But soon, someone quickly headed into the depths of the underground palace, while the 3 emissaries led Yi Qinghan into the floating palace at the top of the clouds. The floating palace was like a palace hall. Outside was a flat square, and inside was a deep palace. It was about 100 meters long and 80 meters wide. More than a dozen towering pillars stood proudly. The dragon throne was in the north, and behind the throne was a statue of an ancient beast. It was incomparably majestic, and its 2 eyes seemed to be alive, filled with pressure. Yi Qinghan was placed flat on the stone slab. The 3 emissaries waited anxiously. At this moment, Yi Qinghan released a bit of his spiritual perception and surveyed his surroundings. The main hall came into view. In less than half an hour, 4 super powerhouses appeared in the main hall. They looked old and decrepit, but they were full of vigor. Their cultivation levels were all ultimate powerhouses, and they were much stronger than ordinary ultimate powerhouses. They had lived through countless years, and had even witnessed the Great Barren War. Their eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of history, and their backs projected the rings of time. "All of you get out," an old man said in a serious tone. The 3 emissaries did not dare to disobey the Grand Supreme Elder's orders. They hurriedly bowed and left. There were only 5 people left in the room. Yi Qinghan did not dare to be careless. He tightened his soul. His flesh and blood were scattered, and his soul was on the verge of death. If he was exposed here, He would be exhausted to death by these assassins, even with the pseudo-world artifact, the Inshur's pot. The 4 Grand Supreme Elders stared at Yi Qinghan. One of them reached out and took off his mask. His face was identical to Li Yifeng's, but his face was pale and devoid of color. Even if there were some flaws, they were covered by his ferocious expression. The Grand Supreme Elder looked at Li Yifeng's pained expression and bent down to hold Yi Qinghan's wrist. His spiritual perception entered his body through his blood vessels, and his expression turned ugly. His physical body's life force has been scattered. His life force source seems to have used some forbidden technique, causing it to be severely damaged. If he does not use his foundation, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to survive. The Grand Supreme Elder said in a deep voice. In order to hide this from the Grand Supreme Elders, Yi Qinghan had really gone all out. He had severed his own life force, and all his flesh and blood had been scattered by himself. However, it was still within his range of control. If he wanted to recover, he would need some time. Take out the Supreme God Pellet. This is a critical period. We cannot give up on him. After all, he represents the orthodox Heavenly Hall. The second elder said with a frown. The other 3 Grand Supreme Elders thought for a moment and nodded solemnly. The Grand Supreme Elder sighed and said, Sigh, the Supreme God Pellets are 6 of the supreme life-saving divine medicines bestowed by the Supreme Realm Lord. They are definitely able to revive the dead, regrow flesh and bones. Now there are only 4 left. If we use one more. However, there's no other way. Let's use it. He won't be able to retain his life force. The 4 old men walked towards the huge beast behind the dragon throne. The 4 of them exerted their strength at the same time, and 4 rays of divine light shot into the huge beast's eyes. The huge beast opened its mouth and spat out a brocade box. The material of the box was special. Light flowed within the box, but there wasn't any smell from the outside. Yi Qinghan's brows twitched. The divine bird could no longer hold back and wanted to rush out of his body. He had no choice but to take the initiative to suppress this bastard. Shwa! The Grand Supreme Elder quickly opened the brocade box. A fragrance filled the air, and the aura of life filled the air. The entire hall was like a swamp of life. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed. He didn't expect there to be such an unexpected harvest. He suppressed the joy on his face, but on the surface, he still looked like he was in great pain. The Grand Supreme Elder pried open Yi Qinghan's mouth and placed a divine pellet inside. The moment it entered his mouth, it melted. Boundless life force spread throughout his body, automatically healing his injuries. Boom, 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 boom. His injuries were forcefully healed by the divine pellet. The boundless life force even brought along a despair-inducing life force to attack the bottleneck of his cultivation. If he couldn't break through the bottleneck, just this life force alone was enough to destroy the body of a supreme god. Divine medicine turned into a dead medicine. Yi Qinghan allowed the life force to flow through his body. The life force in his body, including his soul, was cleansed by the boundless life force. His injuries were quickly healing. The bottleneck of the high level was incomparably firm. Under the impact of the boundless life force, it actually became somewhat unstable. Time passed bit by bit. Yi Qinghan was in great pain from the impact of the life force. After all, he had just entered the high level. How long had it been since he broke through to the pinnacle? Fortunately, Yi Qinghan's soul was extremely powerful. His comprehension of the pinnacle was also sufficient. In addition to the support of the life force, and the 4 Grand Supreme Elders poured in a huge amount of divine power, he actually entered the pinnacle of the paramount realm in just a short 2 hours. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinghan moved his fingers. Finally, he could move. He began to actively mobilize the energy in his body. His aura erupted, filling the hall. The power grew stronger and stronger, causing the 4 Grand Supreme Elders to frown. They were somewhat suspicious. Li Feng's divine power couldn't be so strong. It was dense, boundless, domineering, and powerful. However, they subconsciously attributed this situation to the effect of the Supreme God Pellet. Chapter 1366. Yi Qinghan's countless years of comprehension allowed him to enter the highest realm in a short period of time. He opened his eyes slightly, and his aura was completely different from Li Yifeng's. The 4 elders looked at Yi Qinghan suspiciously. They felt that he wasn't the master of heaven, but whether it was his appearance or divine power, he was exactly the same as Li Yifeng. The 4 experts looked at each other. Is it because of the Supremacy God pill? The first Supreme Elder muttered. It should be. He is indeed Li Yifeng. His clothes, jade pendant, appearance, divine power ripples, only his aura is different. Another elder said. At this time, Yi Qinghan slightly opened his eyes, emitting a God-King radiance. He glanced around the hall before finally fixing his gaze on the 4 elders. Yifeng greets the 4 ancestors. I didn't expect to alarm you all. Yifeng is sorry. Yi Qinghan bowed and said guiltily. I even wasted a Supremacy God pill. I'm ashamed to face the ancestors. At this time, the 4 Grand Elders heaved a sigh of relief. Other than Li Yifeng, who else knew about the 4 of them? Who else knew about the Sovereign God pill? How did you suffer such heavy injuries? The first elder frowned and asked. Great Ancestor, a few days ago, Divine Sex Sect Master and I tried to kill Zhuofeng together. In the end, we failed and were captured by him. If I didn't use the heaven-shifting technique, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to return. Yi Qinghan bitterly smiled. The 4 elders no longer had any doubts. The heaven-shifting technique was heaven's life-saving technique. It could instantly break through the heavens and earth. Other than the upper echelons, even some of the internal envoys didn't know about it. Where did this Zhuofeng come from? How could he defeat you and Divine Sex Sect Master? The first Supreme Elder asked in shock. During that battle, several powerful pseudo-world weapons appeared. There were 3 of them in the Left General's residence. I didn't have a pseudo-world weapon. The Divine Sex Sect Master's pseudo-world weapon wasn't of much use. In the end, we were taken away by the Inshur's pot. I broke through the shackles in an instant and fought for my life with the Inshur's pot. That was why I was heavily injured, Yi Qinghan explained faintly. The hall was silent for a while. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and said, The Left Marshal's residence will not give up on hunting me down. Mobilize all the masters to reinforce Qing Tian Pass and fight to the death with Zhuofeng. If we gather all the Heavenly Hall's experts in Clear Sky Pass, won't we be giving them a chance to kill us all in one fell swoop? First Supreme Elder asked with a frown. Yi Qinghan shook his head. Zhuofeng and I have a personal grudge. He won't mobilize the border army to attack us. The Divine Sect is different. The Divine Lord killed Prince Shui. This is treason. The 4 elders didn't refute, so Yi Qinghan ordered all the Heavenly Hall's giant gods and above to gather in Clear Sky Pass. 10 days later, the experts of Clear Sky Pass gathered. The Heavenly Hall's experts all returned to defend, but they didn't know that the experts of the Infernal Realm and the Insane Sect were secretly approaching Clear Sky Pass. Yi Qinghan was in the underground palace, absorbing God pills to further his cultivation. In just 10 short days, he had used up all of the top-quality materials in the Heaven of Heaven, and his cultivation base had advanced significantly. Now, he could use the Inshur's kettle as if it were his heart's desire. In fact, he could even take a peak paramount god with him. The 4 elders returned to seclusion in the depths of the underground city. They had lived for so long that they were on the verge of becoming Dao Lords. If not for Li Yifeng being heavily injured and on the verge of death, they wouldn't have come out. Yi Qinghan was in charge of everything in the underground city. He summoned the emissaries to his palace and collected them all into the Inshur's pot. In less than a day, none of the emissaries managed to escape. Li Feng, who was inside the Yin clan's gourd, cursed Yi Qinghan like a madman. Together with the Heaven's emissary assassins, they attacked the Divine Master. The Divine Master was on the verge of death, but Yi Qinghan didn't allow them to kill the Divine Master. 3 days later, the hundreds of giant gods in the underground city were also collected into the Inshur's pot. Aside from the elders and those who had reached the end of their lives, the underground city was now empty. Yi Qinghan chuckled and left the underground city. He didn't disturb the Daolords who were on the verge of becoming Daolords, because they were the truly terrifying existences of the Heavenly Hall. If they fought to the death, Yi Qinghan would lose a layer of skin. Back at the Clear Sky Keep, Yi Qinghan contacted Guangzong and Xiaoye. They were already close to the Clear Sky Keep. Yi Qinghan forcefully opened the Clear Sky Keep's gate from the inside. Guangzong and the Hell's assassins worked together to attack the Clear Sky Keep and started a brutal massacre. Guangzong had the advantage of weapons. The 3 pseudo-world weapons and Xiaoye's Thunder God's hammer rushed into the enemy group with lightning speed and razed the Clear Sky Keep to the ground. Murderous aura filled the sky as blood flowed like a river. Lightning flashed in the sky and dark clouds covered the sky. Occasionally, a spear shadow would pierce through everything and penetrate the city walls. The outside of the Clear Sky Keep was a pile of rubble. More than half of the innocent people were killed or injured, let alone the Heavenly Hall's assassins. Yi Qinghan collected all the experts into the Inshur's pot and killed everyone below the giant god level. Not a single one was left alive. As the saying went, if you cut the grass without removing the roots, it would grow again when the spring breeze blew. With the support of the 4 pseudo-world weapons, the reinforcements from the Heavenly Hall were all killed. After destroying the outside forces of the Heavenly Hall, Yi Qinghan brought the Guangzong, Xiaoye, and the other experts to change into the Heavenly Hall's uniforms and rush to the underground city. Although the underground city and the Clear Sky Keep were adjacent, one was above ground and the other was below ground, they were not the same world. The underground city was a small world that was created and refined separately. The underground city was completely unaware of the massacre happening above the city. The group of experts who were about to reach Tao assimilation were still in seclusion, hoping to prolong their lives. They did not know that other than these old immortals, the rest of the Heavenly Hall had fallen. The experts were captured and the weak were slaughtered. Yi Qinghan opened the underground city's tunnel and led a few hundred experts into the underground city. The rest are all people who are about to reach Tao assimilation. They do not have much hope for their lives. Don't fight them to the death. Use the pseudo-world weapons to kill them. The rest of you maintain the space of the underground city. Don't let the underground city collapse and the small world be destroyed, dragging us into the space turbulence, Yi Qinghan said plainly. Okay. Many experts replied in unison. Yi Qinghan, Jiang Jingtian, Shi Gu, and Xiaoye walked at the front with their pseudo-world weapons. Mo Li, Li Feng, Hell Killer Si Wu, Ji Sha, Di Ling, and the other experts released their divine power and began to stabilize the space. Hundreds of experts maintained the space of the underground city. They were all first-rate experts and could at least maintain the stability of a small world. Boom! Jiang Jingtian soared into the sky and activated the powerful pseudo-world weapons with Shi Gu. The power of the world filled the underground city and tore through space and time. Bang! A spear pierced into the depths, destroying heaven and earth. Following that, Shi Gu activated a stone brick and smashed down an expert who was about to soar into the sky to cover Jiang Jingtian's attack. Hua hua hua! The Thunder God's lightning hammer activated the power of thunder and lightning, turning it into thousands of lightning bolts to rob people of their vitality. Those who were about to reach Tao assimilation did not have much vitality and did not dare to resist the lightning bolts. Boom! In the depths, the four supreme elders flew into the sky and roared furiously. They looked at Yi Qinghan in the distance and realized that they had been tricked. They could not stop the destruction of the heavenly hall. Chapter 1367. I'm sorry, everyone. I've made you spend an extra cent today. I'll compensate you double the amount if you join the group. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry. Everyone, please remove the bookshelf first. Then, you'll be able to see the correct chapter. Chapter 1367. Blotting out the sky. The underground city was like the end of the world. A spear pierced through the shackles and destroyed a mountain peak. Lightning flashed everywhere. Many great limit experts were swept away by the pseudo-world weapon before they could recover to their peak state, dying on the spot. There were more than 100 great limit experts hiding in the depth. However, they were struck by lightning as soon as they flew into the sky. Even if there were some lucky ones, they were killed by the world-piercing spear and the stone brick. The strong ones were heavily injured and fell to the ground. However, they were captured by Yi Qinghan. The four great elders were furious. They were at the peak of their recovery. Their extreme limit cultivation was able to resist the pseudo-world weapon. Their aura soared through the galaxy and flattened the underground palace. If it wasn't for Li Feng and the others maintaining the stability of the space in the underground palace, it would have been destroyed long ago. Boom! Jiang Jingtian was extremely powerful. He became one with his spear and pierced through the underground palace. The entire palace was shaking as he clashed with the great elder. Hua! A wave of energy swept away the great limit experts. Their bodies were shattered as the power of the world filled the surroundings. Bang! Jiang Jingtian was sent flying. However, the great elder was also sent flying while coughing up blood. His face was pale and his blood was unstable. At this moment, Yi Qinghan mobilized the power of the world to activate the Inshur's pot. A golden light shone and forcibly captured the great elder. Boom! 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 Xiaoye activated the Thunder God's hammer and destroyed the surroundings. Most of the attacks hit one of the great elders. Xiaoye, who possessed a pseudo-world artifact, was definitely not someone a great limit expert could contend against. She continued to attack, ignoring her injuries. She continued to exchange blows with the Grand Supreme Elder. In the blink of an eye, the Grand Supreme Elder was on the losing end. Most importantly, the Grand Supreme Elder still had to be on guard against Xiaoye. Unfortunately, the more he was on guard, the less he could fight Xiaoye with ease. With the stone brick in hand, Gu smashed left and right. He managed to hold back the two elders for a short period of time, buying some time for Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan seized this opportunity and erupted once again, capturing Xiaoye's opponent. There were only two great elders left. At this time, Jiang Jingtian had already stabilized his body. He and Gu were each dealing with a great elder. At that moment, Yi Qinghan finally launched an attack. His punch landed on a Supreme Elder's body, nearly shattering it. The Supreme Elder was sent flying thousands of meters away. Gu then smashed a brick into his head, killing him on the spot. The final Supreme Elder wanted to tear open the void. However, Mo Li, Li Feng and the others had joined forces to restrain the space, preventing him from doing so. In the end, he fell into the encirclement of the four great experts and was forcefully suppressed within the Yin clan's flask. Inside the flask, Li Feng's eyes were absent-minded. Seeing familiar faces being sucked into the Yin clan's flask, he knew that the Heavenly Hall was finished. In the end, the Heavenly Hall assassins in the flask vented all their resentment on the Divine Master. A group of people surrounded the Divine Master and beat him to his last breath. In the end, Yi Qinghan interfered again, separating the Divine Master and the Heavenly Hall experts. The Divine Master's body was tattered and tattered. He was incomparably furious, but he couldn't do anything to the Heavenly Hall people. Yi Qinghan entered the flask and saw the Divine Master and the Heavenly Hall people killing each other. He couldn't help but laugh. Sect Master Shui, is it because you can't beat them without anyone's help? Don't worry, I'll bring all the Divine Sect people in a few days, giving you a chance to take revenge. Zuofeng, you'll regret this. It's not your turn to make decisions in the divine realm of the Snow Empire. When Mr. Ling Yan returns, he'll definitely find the Supreme Realm Lord to uphold justice. You killed a meritorious servant, you'll definitely be destroyed by the Realm Lord. I don't care who you are. The Divine Master roared in anger. Yi Qinghan shrugged and said indifferently, it's fine. When your Realm Lord appears, I'll have already taken control of the divine realm of the Snow Empire. Who knows, he might even become my subordinate and help me attack the other 6 realms. What? You want to take control of the divine realm of the Snow Empire and attack the other 6 realms? At this time, Li Feng, the few Grand Elders and the Divine Master were stunned. They looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief and questioned him in unison. Why else do you think I want to take control of the divine realm of the Snow Empire? Yi Qinghan said lazily. After speaking, Yi Qinghan turned and was about to leave the Yin clan's flask. Wait, you want to attack the other 6 realms, why do you want to destroy us? We can help you, Li Feng said anxiously. Yi Qinghan laughed mockingly. To resist foreign aggression, one must first pacify the internal affairs. First, I need to ensure that there are no enemies in the divine realm of the Snow Empire before I can attack the other 6 realms. However, you guys have deep roots and will go against my will, so I can only uproot you superpowers. As for helping me, I need experts, not trash. After I capture everyone from the divine sect, I'll give heaven a chance. As long as you kill everyone from the divine sect, I'll let you follow me to conquer the other 7 realms. The people from heaven seemed to have grasped a way out, but the Divine Master looked at Yi Qinghan with hatred. Yi Qinghan looked down at the Divine Master coldly and smiled evilly. Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. Just because of Tong Tong's hatred, I'll torture you and make you watch as the divine sect is destroyed. Then, you'll die in despair. After speaking, Yi Qinghan turned and left the Yin clan's flask. Less than an hour later, the Divine Master recovered some of his divine power, but Yi Qinghan once again allowed the people from heaven to gang up on him. They would gang up on the Divine Master at least 7 or 8 times a day. The Divine Master couldn't sleep or rest. Sometimes, Yi Qinghan would even take the initiative to help the Divine Master recover his divine power so that he could protect himself. The Divine Master was forced into a corner. He didn't want to die and hoped that Ling Yan would come back and save him. He could only pass the difficult days while being beaten. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan appeared in the Divine Sect's territory. The Snow Empire's army surrounded the Divine Sect, but the inner sect's formation was too strong. It actually lasted until today. After Yi Qinghan appeared, Shui Jihuang felt somewhat embarrassed. He didn't expect that after attacking the Divine Sect for so many days, they still couldn't take it down. The Divine Sect's roots are deep. The formation is a famous formation from the Desolate Era. The 9 Heavens God Sealing Formation uses the power of the firmament as a guide. It uses the power of the stars, sun, and moon to defend the Divine Sect. As long as the firmament is not destroyed and the sun, moon, and stars are still there, it is impossible to break the formation. It is normal that you can't break it in a short period of time. Yi Qinghan said calmly. How can I break the formation? Shui Jihuang looked at the confident Yi Qinghan and asked curiously. Isolate the firmament and cover the sun, moon, and stars so that they can't reinforce the formation. Naturally, it will break by itself. Yi Qinghan smiled coldly. He soared into the sky and looked down at the intersect. It was only about 100 li. He immediately took out the Inshur's pot. The pot's mouth expanded infinitely. However, when it expanded halfway, the divine power was insufficient. In the end, Xiaoye, Li Feng, Jiang Jingtian, Shi Ge, and the others used the pseudo-world artifact and poured the power of the world into Yi Qinghan's body. Boom! A divine light spread out for 100 li and covered the divine sect's inner sect completely. Although it couldn't take away the divine sect's inner sect, it was enough to block the firmament's power and the light of the sun, moon, and stars. The divine light covered the sky and the sun. The divine sect's inner sect formation was quickly shattered by the Snow Empire's army and became a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Chapter 1368. Everyone, please remove the Kuang Wu Zhan bookshelf first, then add it back to the bookshelf. You will see the correct chapter and update the wrong chapter. I'm really sorry. Everyone, please join the group. I'll pay you back double. Dao Du sincerely apologizes. The divine sect was breached and became a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Facing the million-strong army, the experts of the insane sect, and the 4 pseudo-world weapons, resistance was futile. They couldn't cause any damage. The elders of the divine sect felt that the glory of the divine sect couldn't be thrown away. They would never surrender, but the Snow Realm army forcibly flattened the inner sect. Experts fell one after another. Some were seriously injured. After Yi Qinghan broke through the inner sect, the experts who couldn't resist were all captured by the Inshur's pot. Even if they weren't injured, they couldn't resist the Inshur's pot supported by the 4 pseudo-world weapons. Thousands of people struggled, but they were all sucked away. In just half an hour, only a few great elders of the divine sect were still struggling. They roared and threatened the Snow Realm army. However, the divine sect's sect master assassinated the Snow Realm army's commander-in-chief and besieged the current left marshal several times. The Snow Realm army didn't need to worry about Lingyan coming back. They simply massacred to avenge the commander-in-chief. The divine sect was flattened in a short period of time. The Falcon Squad took action, suppressing the great elders, and finally captured by Yi Qinghan. The divine sect was officially destroyed. Broken walls, rubble, corpses, and rivers of blood. The Archaean sect's resources had been plundered, but with the divine bird around, none of it was wasted. Dozens of treasure vaults had become the insane sect's resources. Coupled with the resources they had obtained from the Heavenly Hall, it was enough for all of the insane sect's experts to reach mid-level Paramount God. It could even allow the super-elites to reach peak Supreme God or even the limit. The 2 Supreme Divine Pills were of utmost importance. Even in the desolate era, these life-saving Divine Pills were priceless treasures. Only the Realm Lord had the qualifications to refine them. At most, the medicine god Taoist would be able to refine them. Even the current Yi Qinghan couldn't refine them. After the destruction of the Snow God sect, the entire divine realm of the Snow Empire was in an uproar. The Snow God sect and the Heavenly Hall, the 2 superpowers, were uprooted. Some of the overlords and powerful sects offered their loyalty to the left martial manor, offering them large amounts of resources. Yi Qinghan accepted the gifts and prepared to send the insane sect into secluded cultivation so that all of them could become peak paramount gods. On the 3rd day after Yi Qinghan returned to the provincial capital, Wang Zhongjuan personally led the experts from God of Fortune City to escort hundreds of thousands of female assassins from Yantian Pavilion into the city and handed them over to Yi Qinghan. In order to express his gratitude, Yi Qinghan specially gave Wang Zhongjuan a supreme technique he obtained from divine sect. This made Wang Zhongjuan even more delighted with Yi Qinghan, but he didn't know that the Wang clan was about to meet its end. After the aces of the God of Fortune City retreated, Yi Qinghan gathered all the female assassins of the Yantian Pavilion. Most of them had very low cultivation. Perhaps they were forced to do so, or perhaps there were other reasons. For a moment, he did not know how to deal with them. The female assassin from the Yantian Pavilion was somewhat terrified. She didn't even understand how she had been exposed and how she had been eliminated by the Wang clan in one go. They were all top-notch women. It would be a pity to kill them, but he couldn't use them as assassins. Letting them go would be troublesome. Yi Qinghan scratched his head. Xiaoye curled her lips and mocked disdainfully. What? You can't bear to kill them? Yi Qinghan laughed awkwardly and said in a low voice, killing so many female cultivators at once is against the heavens. Moreover, most of them haven't completed their mission. They're all innocent people. If I kill them all, it'll be unfair. I'm not a homicidal maniac. I didn't know. I didn't see you say that when you destroyed divine sect and heaven, Xiaoye mocked. Slap. Yi Qinghan flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped Xiaoye's soft butt. I haven't taught you a lesson for a few days. You're going to break the rules again. Yi Qinghan deliberately scolded her with a straight face. Xiaoye was going crazy. She clenched her small fists and wanted to punch that arrogant and handsome face. Tell me, how should we deal with them? After all, there are hundreds of thousands of people. We can't just dig a hole and bury them all, right? Yi Qinghan asked the others helplessly, hoping for a good suggestion. Hundreds of thousands of women were indeed not easy to deal with. The group of people from divine sect turned their heads away from Yi Qinghan. Ever since they followed Yi Qinghan, they didn't like to use their brains. They only needed one person to do it. Yi Qinghan shook his head. If this group of people asked them to kill people, they would probably not hesitate. If they were asked to come up with an idea, they wouldn't even bother to use their brains. Bring them to the border and reward the army. The divine bird was not interested in women. If it was a female bird of the same clan, it might be able to raise its spirit. When Yi Qinghan heard this, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. Wasn't this kind of thing a waste? Xiaoye glared at the divine bird. She felt that it was insulting women and was very dissatisfied. The divine bird immediately shrank its head and went back into Yi Qinghan's bloodline. It turned into a trace of imprint and didn't come out again. Master, you put a seal on them. Let me manage them. Maybe they will be useful. At this time, Sister Yao came out. She couldn't bear to kill all the women of Yantian Pavilion, so she took the initiative to suggest. Yi Qinghan was suddenly happy. He felt that it was very reasonable. He began to put a seal on them one by one. Even if these women cooperated, it was still very tiring. After a day, they were exhausted to the extreme, but they still managed to seal more than 100,000 people. The next day, Yi Qinghan gave Sister Yao a separate piece of land outside the sacred city and let her lead these female assassins. Sister Yao knew part of Yi Qinghan's plan, so she asked for some of the True Force Domain's secret techniques for these female assassins to cultivate. She hoped that when they attacked the True Force Domain, they could assassinate some of the True Force Domain's expert. Yi Qinghan was reassured by Sister Yao's decision and provided some resources. He also found some of the True Force Domain's powerful techniques for these female assassins to cultivate. A few days later, Yi Qinghan began to reorganize the divine nation again. The ninth prince didn't dare to have any objections. Everything was decided by Yi Qinghan. Even Snow Nine Emperor didn't object because the Snow Emperor spirit and the Desolate Slave were in Yi Qinghan's hands. With Snow Nine Emperor's cooperation, it was very easy to reorganize the hundreds of states in the divine nation. The state lords were all handed over to trusted people. In a short time, the divine nation became Yi Qinghan's backyard. A large amount of resources were transported to the sacred city. The experts of the insane sect all entered seclusion, and the left marshal's residence quieted down. At this moment, even Xiao Yu and her subordinates were being nurtured. However, Yi Qinghan had forbidden the three of them. This made the three experts extremely angry, but there was nothing they could do. After Yi Qinghan finished dealing with everything, he took the initiative to look for the Snow Emperor spirit and the Desolate Slave. The Desolate Slave looked at Yi Qinghan with some reverence and even more fear. She didn't understand why Yi Qinghan had locked her and her daughter up. Yi Qinghan looked at the terrified Desolate Slave and couldn't help but sigh. "What is your name?" Yi Qinghan asked gently. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Huang Xian. The Desolate Slave knelt on the ground and didn't dare to raise her head to look at Yi Qinghan. After being enslaved for so many years, she had lost all her dignity. The only person she could trust was Snow Nine Emperor. "Stand up and raise your head to look into my eyes. Tell yourself that you are no longer a slave. You are not allowed to kneel to anyone." Yi Qinghan said firmly. The Desolate Slave raised her head in fear and looked at Yi Qinghan. When she saw those eyes filled with willpower, she felt an indescribable confidence. She felt that she was no longer a slave. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.